We are now on the bottomless cliff, where the protagonist says that this place reminds him of old times, especially the days when he dreamed of becoming the god of martial arts. A dream he couldn't easily achieve, but desperately wanted to come true. Every time he talked about his dream, he was labeled as crazy. Even after all that training, it wasn't enough. Until suddenly, someone appears behind him calling him a crazy demon. He turns to see who it is, and it's the bright light official asking him to hand over the Celestial Jade he stole from the demonic cult. The protagonist asks if he can tell a story first, but the light official asks why he's trying to buy time. His time has run out. The protagonist takes out his jade from his pocket, saying that if he can't tell his story, he'll throw it off the cliff. This makes the light official apologize. Probably if the jade fell from this height, it would break into pieces. So, the protagonist begins to tell his story that he was really talented in mental games, strategy, tactics, in all aspects. He was also excellent at drinking and immune to the seduction of women, besides being excellent in the light body technique. The light official interrupts, saying he wasn't that good, stating that the reason seduction never worked on him is that women with natural beauty never liked him much. In short, they only send normal women after him, and this is a fact known to everyone in the martial kingdom. This makes the protagonist threaten to throw the jade again, but the light official asks him to continue his story. The protagonist just wanted to say that looking now, it seems that everything he did for the sake of the world was useless. But the guy says that doesn't make sense since currently he is in a higher rank than his own as a public enemy, and that's because he belongs to the demonic cult. In fact, when the guy mentions that the title of crazy demon was also given to him by the forces of justice, the protagonist again threatens to throw the jade into the abyss. This makes the guy apologize for speaking rudely. Seeing the whole situation, the protagonist says that this jade must be very important to him for him to be acting so sweet now, especially given the fact that he is emotionally controlling himself at this very moment. The light official, losing patience, tells him to stop spouting nonsense, noticing the guy's killing intent. He said he respects his decision and really wants to present a final fight. However, he says he should throw it away first since it will only get in his way during the fight. The light official immediately starts apologizing for being so emotional and asks if they can talk better, but the protagonist asks if it's not too late for that now, as he tirelessly hunted him for days while executing the Heaven and Earth network. Thanks to the light official, he hasn't been able to sleep or eat properly. He can't even go to the bathroom in peace. He asks if they have any idea what it's like not being able to go to the bathroom when you want. Pulling back the jade, the light official asks what he's thinking of doing. He says he's thinking of giving them a big shit since he never can go to the bathroom in peace, and then he actually ate the jade. Everyone at the scene was left puzzled, and when they started to understand, he was already sweating cold. The protagonist stands there saying that he didn't imagine it would taste like that, even without any expression of surprise. He says the jade tasted like peaches and tells the official that judging by his current reaction, that was the right decision to make. The official, now completely furious, orders them to capture him alive and to bring anything that's left of him alive to present to his lord. And so everyone went after him all at once. The protagonist entered his martial position, dodging the first sword strike. He struck the first one's stomach with force, hit the spine of another. He was dealing with everyone at once. He dodged up to 2 swords, and when he attacked, his fists seemed like blades that, while piercing, threw several enemies into the air. Of course, he was exhausted by it, so he decides to call the light official, asking how long he intends to let his lackeys die for him. In fact, he weakened him in this long pursuit, so why not come at him now? The official tells him to shut up and says he will be his opponent since that's what he wants. Then he orders all his subordinates to step back. The protagonist mocks his face, saying that now that he's weak, the official wants to look all-powerful for his lackeys, which makes him furious, coming at the protagonist telling him to shut up. But our protagonist also prepared for this, and told him to come at him. The official was coming at full speed, channeling some kind of key in his hand. Our protagonist was already very weakened due to exhaustion, but still remained strong. Both were face to face, and the clash of ki was inevitable. The explosion generated by the impact was grand. A large part of the cliff collapsed. It was possible to see the protagonist flying away, and in his thoughts, he said that maybe taking the official with him in his current state was impossible. On the other hand, the completely incapacitated official was surprised by how much strength there was still in the crazy demon. He says he was stronger than the world knew, but when he sees the crazy demon flying through the air, he screams in despair, denying such a situation. On the other hand, the protagonist only wishes their leader to kill them all for incompetence, and tells everyone to go to hell. This left the official dumbfounded, incredulous with the situation. Quickly, he orders everyone to descend the cliff and bring at least his body. Our protagonist, now falling from the cliff, had many thoughts about the Celestial Jade in his mind, but it seems that doesn't matter anymore. His last thought was why he never managed to hook up with a hot woman until he found himself standing in a very bright place. Not understanding where he was, began to wonder where this place was, when suddenly, an old man appeared behind him, saying that he ate a soul without hesitation and that he must be out of his mind to do such a thing. And when the protagonist looked closely, the old man was floating in the air. The first thing he said was that the old man was extremely strong, but the old man seemed not to care about the guy's thought. and just said that the Celestial Jade he ate contained numerous important martial artist souls. Now that he ate that, the souls that were unable to ascend will stay with his own soul. If the protagonist sleeps, the souls will wake him up. If he eats, the souls will share the essence of the food, and if, in the end, the souls cling to whoever he touches, his IQ will go into an uncontrollable rage. The protagonist, after hearing all this, says he really liked the situation. What makes the old man think he is crazy? Then the old man says he will ask him a question. What was the reason for swallowing the Celestial Jade? And the protagonist felt that the old man had enough power to kill him with just a look if he wanted. He is powerful beyond his comprehension, and can make his existence erased if he doesn't like the answer. The old man tells him to answer without lies or tricks. So he explains that he didn't eat it because he wanted to. He just wanted to make sure the leader of the demon cult wouldn't be able to eat it. This leaves the old man somewhat puzzled, and he asks him to explain better. He said he hates the leader of the demon cult since he doesn't see other people as equivalent humans. If someone like him became stronger, he doesn't even want to think about what that would result in. The old man asks if he doesn't like him because he doesn't see others as humans. So, did you do this because you didn't want someone like that to get stronger? Analyzing the whole situation, the old man said that this is actually a good reason to be doing good. This made the protagonist sigh in relief. Then, the old man says that the salvation he will leave for him is the first and the last. He won't be able to help him because he will receive a punishment. The protagonist didn't quite understand and asked what he meant. The old man just says that this is the best choice he can give him. It's his best gift. He says this while conjuring something between the palms of his hands. With that, our protagonist was completely engulfed by a mysterious light. And now, we are in another place. The protagonist wakes up completely scared, wondering where he is, until he begins to remember. His name is Izaha, and he is in the inn where he lived when he was a child. After getting up, he realizes that this really is not a dream, and he begins to wonder what is happening. He was about 20 years old when he lived here, until he begins to understand the whole situation. If he went back in time, he can train his martial arts several years before all that. He can get much stronger than last time. When that moment comes, he won't lose this time, until he feels a little unwanted pain, noticing that he was all beaten up. He asks if he got into a fight. When was that? Leaving the room, he notices that everything was destroyed. The inn was a complete mess, and if this happened then that has already happened in this timeline. He remembers that, at that time, he had summoned customers asking why he was saving money. Ashamed to say that he was saving money because his parents had died, he thought of making a joke. So, he said he dreamed of hearing a Chai Hyang song at the city's brothel, and everyone there laughed, saying it was a humble dream of a delivery boy. But not long after, a very bad rumor spread throughout the city. They said he was saving money just to sleep with Chai Hyang. At that time, he just made a tasteless joke, and a distorted rumor spread throughout the city. Looking at the current state of the inn, he knows he has returned to that time, which makes him wonder why they beat him and destroyed the entire inn just because of a rumor. After that, he decides that he needs to check the state of his body before deciding what to do. He intends to relearn the art of the journey through the lands of steel that he used in his time as a crazy demon. The chi began to form. But he has no idea why this is happening now, as there was nothing at that time. He notices that he actually has a lot of ki now. He has no idea why, but will move forward and progress in the art of the journey through the lands of steel. After the sunset, night came. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He reached the first stage of the journey through the lands of steel so quickly, until he remembers the old man's words, saying that this was the best choice he could make and the best gift he could receive. So, was that what the old man was talking about? Besides, this energy he feels throughout his body may have something to do with the Celestial Jade he swallowed. However, more than half of the energy inside his body is not moving, which he sees as shameful on his part. But he says he doesn't need to rush so much. Now he already has a significant amount and can get stronger much faster than last time, until suddenly his stomach growls with hunger. He must have spent a long time using this technique in his room, so he decided to take a walk around the city. Now, walking through the streets, he saw a typical local cuisine everywhere, which began to trigger his memory, making him remember this place. When it was possible to see two guys sitting at a table asking if that wasn't the inn's delivery boy. Quickly, everyone started gossiping about the guy. He also remembered this. Remembered that everyone mistreated him for being a simple messenger in his past life. And as he begins to think about it, he starts to get furious, until we finally get where the protagonist wanted. This must be the brothel where he ended up being spoken ill of in his past life. It was exactly in this place that he took a beating from the guards. They beat him a lot so he would never show up again. Even the girl he mentioned, Chai Hyang, was looking at him with a scornful face. It wasn't his fault that time. Still, he got beaten up for something he didn't do. Returning to the inn, he noticed that everything was destroyed. In addition, everyone mocked him, thinking he was just a loser. He just wondered what he did wrong, looking now from the future. But in the present, he thinks that even the crazy demon had moments like this, right? And it seems that now he has returned at the perfect moment. He will clear up this confusion once and for all, until out of nowhere a guy tells him to get out of here, or if he's thinking of setting fire to the brothel. He still mocks, asking if he would even be able to light a fire, implying that he would be scared and cry. The protagonist didn't say anything, just observed the situation. The guy comes up preaching, saying it's surprising that he didn't die after the beating he took, and asks why he's walking around after taking such a beating. In fact, he starts to get angry because the protagonist is not responding and asks if he went deaf after taking so many beatings. The protagonist simply asks what his name was again. This made the guy furious, coming up or attacking immediately. The protagonist dodged the first blow and landed a powerful punch on his chin from bottom to top. The guy was already thrown backward and fell unconscious. It seems that the protagonist didn't even ask maliciously what his name was, so why did that make him so nervous? Now heading towards the brothel, the security guard of the place asks what he's doing here. The protagonist asks if this is the way to talk to a customer, which makes the guard come up completely enraged. Then the protagonist dodged and grabbed the guy's face, smashing him to the ground with all his strength. This is another one who is sleeping. Now cleaning his clothes, the protagonist says that the customer service in this place is a mess. Everyone was enjoying the place peacefully when the protagonist opened the doors of the brothel, asking what they are doing. Why aren't they receiving their client? Everyone who was inside stopped. Everyone there stared at him incredulously. Two guards quickly surrounded him, asking where he thinks he is. He mocks, saying he's in a place where he can drink. Isn't that obvious to them? The guy was completely furious with this, saying he went crazy. He was already raising his hand when someone told him to stop. Of course, the protagonist remembers this person. The one who ordered the guards to stop was the manager of the brothel. The man states that they can't throw out a customer who came to drink. A customer is still a customer. The protagonist is pleased with the response and asks if the guards heard that too. After that, he calmly entered. Everyone was impressed that he was really entering such a place. Along the way, he was advised to serve him well. They guided him to a spacious room, and the attendant asked what drink he wanted. He mentioned never being in a place like this before, so just give him the most expensive one. This makes the guy warn him to watch what he says. The protagonist, now seated, asks, "Don't you like being looked down upon by a delivery boy?" Offending the attendant, he demands to bring the damn alcohol he asked for, which leaves him completely furious. If it weren't for the manager's order, he would have done something now, but he just asks him to wait a bit and leaves the room. Sometime later, the table was fully loaded with food, and he asked what this drink was. The attendant said it's a high-quality liquor. After that, the protagonist questions whether Chae-hyang is here. She confirms that she is, but warns that the owner will be upset, as she heard he was beaten up due to something related to this girl a few days ago. However, he insists that she shouldn't worry about it and asks her to bring Chae-hyang to him immediately. She watches the guy for a while, but realizing he is serious, she nods, saying she'll send a message to her right away. Now, once again, the protagonist is alone in the room. He admits to being surprised that they are lying to a messenger boy by claiming that this liquor is of high quality. After taking the liquor, he says it's not even third rate. He hears a lot of noise outside. A completely furious guy comes in, asking if he's crazy and using very derogatory words. The protagonist remains patient, asking if it's wrong for a mere delivery boy to come to a brothel to drink. He also questions why he keeps offending him. The guy is puzzled by the situation. Then the protagonist says he remembers his name and calls him by it, saying he will serve him a glass, so come over. After sitting down, the man asks what's wrong with him, even questioning if he hit his head too hard last time. The protagonist, as always, remains very patient, offering him the drink. The man asks him not to cause a scene after drinking, or things might get worse. Seeing that the protagonist remains impassive and only said his name, the man got furious and hit the glass on the table, trying to move to aggression. But the protagonist simply sent a chopstick into his hand. Finally, he changed his expression, giving a little smile. The man, on the other hand, had an expression of someone in a lot of pain. The protagonist simply asks why he came here. He only planned to see the woman and leave, so why is everyone barking like an excited dog in this establishment? Finally, the woman enters through the door. This lady here is Chae-hyang, the woman he mentioned when he made the joke. The first thing the woman does is ask the man with the injured hand to go outside. Mocking, the protagonist says that indeed, he should go outside, and he goes like a little dog whimpering. After the nuisance left the room, the protagonist gave a nice little smile. This made the woman ask why he was smiling. He simply said there was no reason, or should he control his emotions in a place like this too? She says he must find this situation very amusing and asks if he thinks the brothel owner will stay quiet after all this. She said the drink is the most expensive liquor here. In addition, the medical bills for injuring that other man won't be cheap. She says she's saying this for his own good. He should just grab his things and leave before they get into more trouble. But in the protagonist's mind, he only thinks that this is the first time he's seen her so up close. She emphasizes that she has to make it clear. Now she's working here, but it doesn't mean she sleeps with anyone. She says that even if he brings a sack full of gold and silver, she won't sleep with him. She is not a prostitute. So he says he will also make things clear here. He says he never said he was going to say so he can sleep with her if he wants. All he said is that he wanted to hear a song from her. As she said before, she comes from her arts rather than her body. Confused, she asks if this is true because what she heard was something else. And he says all this was because of a joke. He didn't know what to do and also didn't have the money. So, he clarifies that the reason he was looking for her until now was to say this and tells her to leave now. She is completely confused by what he just said, and he reinforces by telling her to go away. She didn't expect this, did she? Until suddenly, 3 guards burst open the door with great force. They immediately call the protagonist, saying that he must have come here with the desire to die today and ask if they can handle it outside since it would be a hassle to clean the floor afterwards. On the other hand, the protagonist asks them to at least let him finish his drink before leaving. This starts to make the guys completely furious. He just asks what's the problem. He's sure the guys are confident enough to kill someone like him whenever they want, right? Counting the protagonist's words, they stop what they were doing and start laughing out loud, asking the woman to wait for them outside. Now, having only them at the table, the guard asks him to drink his last cup. Mocking the situation, he says that this guy is a real man. He came here with pride and even called for the woman. If he knew this guy was a real man, he would have beaten him much harder and regrets it. But now that they know it, they can beat him properly and ask what he thinks about it. The protagonist just asks if he wants a drink. This surprised the guard again, but he says he doesn't need it, and as soon as he finishes, they will go outside, so he asks him to stand up. On the other hand, the protagonist fills the glass again and drinks it. He was calmly savoring this drink that he called a third-rate liquor. This makes the guard wonder why he is so relaxed. Did he go crazy after the beating he took a few days ago? And it seems that finally the protagonist's drink is over, and he says he has only one thing to ask his old friends, and that is if he really is such a big joke. The guys ask why he shouldn't be a joke. He could have ended this with the beating he took a few days ago, but still escalated things to this point, until the crazy protagonist starts laughing, which surprises the guys, saying that he is really laughing. The men draw their weapons and start laughing along with the protagonist. Suddenly, everyone was laughing in this room until they finally drew their swords and came at him. The protagonist quickly lifted the table, leaving all the food floating in the air, and kicked the table with all his strength, causing it to crash into the guards. The three fell at the same time, incapacitated on the ground. The protagonist steps on the table, calling him an old friend, asking if he's still a joke to them. The woman who brought the liquor earlier was surprised to see this situation. The protagonist was humiliating the three guards while asking if he was a joke. She even questions how he did that, calling her an old witch, and tells her to bring more of that third-rate liquor. But that liquor is not third-rate. It's a high-class drink. He immediately asks who she's trying to fool. He tries not to hit women who don't know martial arts, but she should think twice before opening her mouth. The woman gets completely furious with that but can't do anything, so she turns around and goes to fetch the liquor he asked for. Dealing with this situation, he looks back at the three guys, telling them to laugh back. Didn't they say he was a joke? They aren't laughing now in front of the funny guy, until many people showed up in the hallway. Among them, the manager seemed to have come, and it really was him in person who came to handle the situation. Even the protagonist was surprised to see him here. The guy, observing the whole situation, was speechless. He could only look at that situation where the three guys were thrown to the ground, which immediately made him ask if the protagonist had gone crazy. If things continue like this, he will die. The protagonist asks if he will die, and the guy said yes, but it doesn't seem like anyone here is here to do that. The protagonist gives a slight smile, which makes the guy furious, so he immediately went for it. It was supposed to be a clean blow to the neck. We can also see the protagonist holding a bottle in the background. The manager was impressed with the speed. When he was hit with a bottle to the head, shards of the bottle flew at the other guards. When we look back at the manager, he was injured. The protagonist remained impassive at that moment, so he just asked if anyone else there wanted to fight him. He had a frightening look. It seemed like no one would go against his will. The manager warns that this way he will really die. He would draw his sword, until the protagonist warns that he must think very carefully before acting. If he finishes drawing the sword here, he will die. The guy heard that and panicked. He was sure this guy wasn't lying. The protagonist mocks, saying that the most capable person in this town couldn't analyze and understand what was going on. He even questioned if the manager thought that these three who are covered in food and drink are like that because they weren't lucky. Besides, does the manager think he lost his eye because he was lucky? At that moment, we can see that his eye was indeed injured. So, he reinforces the warning, saying that if he doesn't want to die, he must think before acting. If he finishes drawing the sword here, he will die. The manager got the message. He understood that it's not an empty threat. He can't even see the movements of the other guy. So, he tried to analyze the situation better and ordered everyone to go down and wait downstairs. After that, of course, he sheathed his sword and asked what the messenger was planning, since he didn't seem like he was going to leave after a drink. Did he come here to apologize to the owner for what happened a few days ago? The protagonist found this situation quite interesting and asked if he really wanted to apologize. Could he call the owner here? The manager said okay, he'll call the owner then, until the protagonist asks if he really lost his vision, but the manager says fortunately it seems his eye is fine. But he understood what the protagonist meant by that and asked his vassals to set up another table in the next room. He even asked the protagonist to let him heal those guys lying on the floor. The protagonist remained impassive, looking at the manager, which surprised the manager because the guy hadn't changed his expression until now. So he said yes, you can take them. So, after removing everyone from the place, we moved to the new room. The manager asked why he made this mess. It started very suddenly. Also asked if he got lucky somewhere to gain power like that. The protagonist just looked at the bottle of liquor, which made the manager say that he'll pour a glass, warning that this is a high-quality bottle, a high-class liquor. The protagonist just asks if this is different from the liquor before. He explains that earlier they brought something of horrible quality, claiming it was high-quality liquor. He says that the servants must have brought a third-rate bottle by accident, and that's because they need to make a profit since this is a business. The protagonist just tells him to stop talking nonsense. This makes the manager understand that he wants him to drink first to see if there's no point. poison, and he drinks first calmly. Now it seems that the protagonist can also drink. The manager questions if he has always been this good in fights since he never heard about his skills before. The protagonist thinks for a moment and says that he always held back because his father told him not to fight, but the manager knows that's nonsense. He says that anyway he must apologize for what happened earlier since his substitutes embarrassed him, so he understands why the protagonist did that. The protagonist thanks him for his understanding, calling him a son of a. I can't say that swear word here, lol. The protagonist says he's getting annoyed. The way he apologized irritates him too much. The guy kind of got the message, but the protagonist asks if he needs to break some bones to change the way he apologizes. The manager quickly prostrates himself, apologizing in a humiliating way. This is the first time in his life that the manager kneels to someone. At that very moment, that woman entered the room, which made the manager even more embarrassed. Seeing the wound on the manager's face, and seeing him kneeling before the messenger boy, she kind of understood the situation. Even the manager lost to that kid. The protagonist quickly noticed the presence of the woman, which made the manager tell her to serve them. She was going to pour more drink into the manager's glass when he asked if she's crazy, telling her to serve that man and not him. Quickly, she went to the protagonist to serve him. She began to pour the drink when the protagonist called her by her name. She asked what he needed, and he questioned if she knew about it. Even a messenger boy has pure love within this. This surprised the woman at first, but changing her impression, he said that, however, this love never pointed towards her, so go away from here. You're ruining the atmosphere of this place. She didn't know what to do or even say at that moment. When the manager asks what she's waiting for, telling her to leave, the woman feels completely embarrassed and leaves crying. The manager regrets that she's crying just for hearing that, until our protagonist calls the manager again, telling him to stop talking so delicately, especially because only his cut eyes are making him very uncomfortable. The manager, giving a smile, says he understands, and I don't know why this made the protagonist a little angry with the situation. The guy tried to remain impassive, but when the protagonist looked right into his eyes, the guy quickly prostrated himself in respect to his client and messenger from the inn.
Zaha stares at a drink container while waiting for the owner to arrive. Chasumte says that he must be serving the Black Rabbit Union experts at the Pure Blossom brothel, and it will be difficult for him to come over. The protagonist says that the Black Rabbit Union is made up of unfair guys. Sumte confirms, saying that the union will be established in the Eliang Prefecture with the approval of the Black Rabbit Union, which is why the owner is trying to please them. He tries to talk to the protagonist about what happened today, but Zaha cuts him off, saying he understands that even if he subjugated the owner, the Black Rabbit Union would get involved in the matter themselves. Chasumte confirms that this is true. Angry, the protagonist slams his glass on the table, asking what the man wants him to do, have a drink with the owner and go back. Zaha asks if Sumte thinks that would solve everything. Of course not, he replies, asking Zaha what he would like to do instead. The protagonist says that maybe the owner and his brothers could serve him as subordinates. That way the Black Rabbit Union wouldn't interfere in this matter. Chasumte asks if Zaha really thinks they would be willing to do that. Speaking of it, the protagonist mentions that he might as well create a sect in the Eliang Prefecture himself, and they should join as his subordinates. Hearing this leaves Chasumte confused. Zaha simply says he'll give him a chance, so he better make a good choice. He says that if Sumte thinks the Black Rabbit Union will win, he can fight against them along with the owner. Otherwise, he can join him. In his thoughts, Chasumte wonders what made Zaha change so much. For what kind of errand boy talks about creating a sect as if it were nothing? Tired of waiting, Zaha slams his glass on the table and stands up to leave. Chasumte asks why he won't wait a little longer. Zaha asks if the man thinks he's running away. He simply replies that yes, he does. The protagonist says that saying this, he's practically asking to be beaten up. Chasumte is at a loss for words. Then he stands up and tells the protagonist to have a safe journey back and that he'll pay for his drink today. Zaha, as he leaves, just says he can do as he likes. Outside, several of Chasumte's guards are waiting for him. Looking at all of them, Zaha just smiles and tells everyone to clear the way for him. They all do as the man says and wait with their heads bowed as he passes. As the protagonist goes down the stairs, someone is looking for him in the hall, asking where the errand boy is. Irritated that someone is trying to calm him down, the man wants to get the protagonist at all costs. Seeing this, Zaha catches the man's attention by insulting him. Immediately, the man charges at him, trying to attack him. But with just one strike, Zaha sends him flying. The impact of the fall even breaks some objects. Everyone in the area is astonished by the scene. Zaha says they should have explained to the man what's going on, as he had to get beaten up once again. He expected the servants to have taken care of that job instead of him. After this, he heads for the exit, saying that the errand boy had some fun there tonight. Hearing this made the servants extremely angry, but they can't do anything, leaving the protagonist satisfied. He walks through the city streets and sees something that catches his attention, a place called Dragon Head Forge. Zaha thinks he needs a weapon if he's going to fight the Black Rabbit Union. Inside, some are busy forging items. The vice master of Dragon Head Forge, Wak Yonge, sees the protagonist enter and calls him an errand boy, asking if he's there for a refund. But Zaha says he's there to buy items. The master thinks he probably wants a sickle or a kitchen knife. However, the protagonist says he needs some weapons, as he's about to fight the Cho family. The master says he heard a rumor that he was beaten up a few days ago, and that he shouldn't let the heat of the moment get the best of him, risking his life. Zaha simply tells the man to shut up and show him the weapons, saying he prefers a sword or a whip, but a decently sharp dagger would also do. Are you going to use all of them? Asks the master. The protagonist says it's just his preference, so he should respect them. Then the master tells his servants to bring the Black Dragon sword, the White Whip, and the Cloud Dragon dagger. Speaking of which, he tells the protagonist that he used to like the chicken soup his grandparents made and asks why he's a terrible cook. Zaha responds that now is not the time to talk about this. The master sarcastically asks if the unification of the Myram world with an errand boy is a more appropriate subject. The protagonist doesn't like the man's attitude, and the master doesn't seem pleased with his presence there. However, the servants arrive with the requested items, and the master says that the protagonist can take as long as he wants to look at the weapons. But he says he is in a hurry and will buy them all. All of them come to a total of 99, says the master. Zaha questions the value of the weapons. The master says he's giving him a big discount because he's from the city. Then the protagonist makes a counteroffer saying he'll pay 50 and borrow the weapons and return them after he's done using them. Such a deal doesn't please the master, who says that's nothing short of daylight robbery. Someone approaches and asks what's going on there. Their entire discussion has attracted attention. The main master of the forge, Kum Chuliang, introduces himself. Everyone there bows to him except for the protagonist. The vice master tells him that Zaha is planning a war against the Cho family brothers and wants to borrow the weapons for 50 Niangs. Chuliang asks if the protagonist is the grandson of the Zaha Inn. He says yes, and that it's been a while since he last spoke with Mr. Kum. He says he liked the chicken soup his grandparents made, but Zaha cooks terribly. The vice master says he's already mentioned that earlier. Kum asks the reason for the war and if it's because the Chill brothers are bothering him. He himself will make them stop. If they refuse to listen to him, he'll offer shelter and protection to the protagonist as he has ties with his grandparents after all. He also says that there's no reason to make this situation bigger than it already is. Zaha doesn't like the offer much. He wonders if Kum was always like this because he doesn't remember him saying such things in his previous life. He also thinks that maybe the future has changed because he came back. The protagonist thanks Kum for his consideration, but he'd like to handle this on his own. Kum asks what he's planning to do. He asks the man if he has any interest in gathering all the forces of the blacksmiths in the area and establishing the Steel Dragon sect. The man is confused by what he hears. Zaha says that if the Chu brothers establish a union, he'll take even more money from him, and that's why he plans to establish a federation of sects in the Aliang prefecture. He wants to ensure that the Black Rabbit cannot do such a thing, and the brothels will belong to the Rebirth sect. The blacksmiths will belong to the Steel Dragon sect, and the architects will belong to the Chuck sect. He himself will gather the rest of the professions to create more sects accordingly. The man pauses to think for a moment. Zaha continues, saying that he won't be forced to pay any fees and the sects won't be above each other, as the goal is to make sure the money isn't stolen. Kum says that although it sounds sloppy, it's very well thought out and asks what the name of the sect would be. The protagonist replies that it would be a place for the poor, a dirty end. By combining them, it would be called the House sect. Kum thinks for a moment about the name given to the sect. He says it's interesting to see a mere errand boy trying to start a sect, asking if he's sure he can face the Chill brothers. Zaha simply replies that he'll see it with his own eyes. Then Kum tells his vice to give the weapons to the protagonist for free. After that, he tells Zaha that they'll continue this conversation if he survives. The protagonist agrees to this. Later, Zaha meditates a bit in his home. He hears the sound of trees swaying in the wind. This motivates him for something. Outside, some men are digging a hole. Zaha goes over to see what's going on. The second Chu brother, Igel, introduces himself. He says he was planning to call the protagonist there after finishing digging the hole. Then, Igel Cho stabs a knife into the table. Angrily, he tells the protagonist to sit. Zaha remains silent and just stares at him with a cold look. Igel Cho stares back at the protagonist. He says today is a great day for the Cho brothers because they've received approval from the Black Rabbit Union to unite the Eliang prefecture with them. The protagonist stays silent and just listens. Cho also says that a kid who can't even make chicken soup is causing trouble in a brothel, and he wonders how to solve this problem. He refers to Yi Zaha, and before finishing digging this arm, he asks him to show 3 reasons to let him live. Zaha laughs at the man's words. This irritates him with the contempt shown. Seeing the man's dissatisfaction, the protagonist asks if he should cry. Cho, irritated, calls him a bastard and tries to grab the knife, but he's surprised as the knife is no longer there. The protagonist quickly took it before him. Now afraid, the man is startled. Then the protagonist strikes his hand with the very knife. Zaha says he also has a question for Cho and asks for just one reason to keep him alive. Cho thinks that previously he couldn't imagine how a mere errand boy had caused problems at the brothel, but now it seems he knows the answer. One of the servants tells Cho that they have finished digging the hole. He tells them to dig deeper. Cho says to the protagonist that it seems he has gone through some sort of enlightenment and congratulates him, advancing towards him. However, the protagonist quickly reacts and strikes him. The man is shocked by the speed of the counterattack. Zaha grabs his arm and stabs his other hand. Cho screams loudly in pain. The protagonist asks what the purpose of the hole is. He responds that it was to scare him. Zaha says that's a bad reason. Then he pulls the knife out of the man's hand. Afterward, he says that Cho hasn't given a reason to be kept alive. With both hands pierced, the man doesn't respond. The protagonist says that he can't think of anything, and unsurprised, he asks if Cho really thought there would be anything. He also says that not only did Cho traffic humans, but he also killed people when things didn't go his way, including some of his acquaintances who died because of him. Cho says that if the protagonist kills his brothers, the Black Rabbit Union will never let him go. But before he can say more, the man falls silent, realizing he's been struck. Zaha stabbed him in the abdomen with his own knife. With that, the protagonist tells him to give reasons to stay alive, not to threaten him. Then the man falls dead onto the table, not provoking any significant reaction from the protagonist. Afterward, he looks at the servants and sees that the men still haven't finished the job. He tells them to stop digging, leaving the men confused. Zaha asks why they're looking so shocked, saying that Cho was playing around with a knife and ended up stabbing himself. The men still have frightened faces. One of them asks who the protagonist is. Zaha says that he's clearly the errand boy from the inn. They say they don't think that's true, but the protagonist tells them not not to doubt it and to remove their masks, as he wants to see if he knows their faces. Shortly after, the Mendu is asked. The protagonist says he has never seen them before in Iliang's town hall and asks if they are from the Black Rabbit, but one of them says they recently worked at the brothel. Hearing this, the protagonist says they have two choices: die right there or burn Cho's body and return to their hometowns. One of the men says they'll return to their towns if the protagonist permits. Another says that, although he can't go back to his town due to personal issues, he'll never show up around there again. The third one agrees and says the same. Zaha then tells them to take care of the body and disappear. One of the servants asks if the protagonist needs help in the kitchen. Saying that he has no means to support himself, he leaves the Plum Blossom brothel. The protagonist asks if the servant is a good cook. He responds that he is. Zaha then asks if the servant can make chicken noodle soup. He says that's very basic and he's sure he can make something really good. But the protagonist says it doesn't matter and that he should only worry about his own life from now on. The man says he understands and wishes the protagonist a good rest. After that, Zaha goes back inside and notices a presence in the house. He asks what the person is doing there. Cha Sung-tae appears and says he wanted to make sure if he would be killed by Cho. Zaha asks if he really thought someone like Cho would kill him and mentions that he had heard that Sung-tae had lost his eye. Sung-tae says it was part of his plan. Seeing how things were going, he says his eye was injured, so he went as quickly as possible to see a doctor. If he hadn't done that, he'd also be digging that hole. But as the protagonist can see, he's very useful and clever. The protagonist agrees and congratulates him sarcastically. Cha Sung-tae says he needs to do this sort of thing to stay alive. Forgetting about that, he asks what Zaha intends to do with the remaining Cho brothers. "I'm going to kill them," replies the protagonist. "If he leaves them be, the Iliang prefecture will suffer even more." Cha Sung-tae agrees and says that Il-sung Cho is the worst criminal in the Iliang prefecture and Zaha should be even more careful when killing him. The protagonist grabs Sung-tae's attention. He immediately listens attentively. Zaha tells him to go buy something to eat as there are drinks but nothing to accompany them. Sung-tae asks why now, when they were about to talk about Il-sung Cho. He also questions how an inn could have nothing to eat. The protagonist simply says everything is gone. Cha Sung-tae doesn't understand how that happened but asks for money to buy something. However, Zaha says he has no way to pay either. Sung-tae mentions that this inn was famous for its delicious chicken noodle soup and asks how it ended up like this. Zaha says it doesn't matter, he should just buy a lot of food and something he likes to eat. And whatever is left he can eat the next day. Cha Sung-tae heads out to buy the food and Zaha calls him. He asks what it is. The protagonist asks if he's taking a stroll and why he's walking so slowly. Sung-tae is confused by this, but gets irritated when he understands what Zaha meant. In his thoughts, he says he never imagined he'd be running errands for a mere messenger boy. The protagonist interrupts and rushes him. This makes Cha Sung-tae run to buy the food. A feast is spread across the table. Cha Sung-tae savors the food. Zaha watches him eat. He says Cha Sung-tae can eat as much as he wants since he bought it with his hard-earned money. Cha Sung-tae says he'll relish every bite. The protagonist states that his money comes from exploiting young women and deceiving people by selling cheap liquor as the best in town. That's why Cha Sung-tae should make sure to enjoy every bite. He hesitates for a brief moment, staring at the protagonist, and Zaha asks if something is wrong with the food. Sung-tae slams his chopsticks on the table and takes a shot of liquor all at once. Angrily, he slams the glass onto the table, making the protagonist notice his change in mood. Cha Sung-tae says he's so irritated that the food tastes terrible, but he returns to the previous topic, saying that with Eagle Cho dead, he wonders how the Black Rabbit Union will react. Zaha says he always seems worried about something but never does anything, and that if he's scared, he should start training to become stronger. Sung-tae wonders if he really seems like someone who worries a lot and ponders what they will do about it. In fact, what he should do about it. Irritated, he thinks the protagonist should stop saying such things. With that, he stands up from the table and asks who the man in front of him is, because he's definitely not Zaha. He must be some kind of substitute. Coldly, Zaha asks if Cha Sung-tae wants to die. He says that after death, he might find the answer to his question. Cha Sung-tae stands at the table for a moment and stares at the protagonist with his remaining eye. Shortly after it, he says they'll kill every damn member of the Black Rabbit Union together. Zaha says that's wonderful, that he'll finish his drink and then go kill Il-sung Cho right away, because he already knows where the younger brother is and the only one left is Il-sung. Cha Sung-tae is shocked by how casually Zaha speaks, saying he talks about killing someone as if it's just taking a bath after a drink. Zaha, in turn, says he can kill his enemy at any time, but the bigger problem is Sampion Cho, since he's gone missing. Sung-tae thinks he'll return home soon. The protagonist is doubtful and asks if Sung-tae, in that case, can kill him. Cha Sung-tae responds that he's confident enough to kill someone like Sampion. Zaha is impressed by his words, but right after, Cha Sung-tae says that due to the condition of his eye, the task becomes more difficult. Irritated, the protagonist tells him to decide already if he's capable or not. Sung-tae says he'll do it in his own time and can use his creativity to help, because he's known as Cha Sung-tae, the Invisible Man. Zaha cuts short the nonsense he's hearing and asks Cha Sung-tae if he can handle the 3 brothels if they take down the Cho brothers. He only responds by saying he is Cha Sung-tae. The protagonist says he already knows his name. Since there are people making a living in the brothels, it won't be possible to get rid of everyone. They will need to pay a fair wage to these people and ensure they won't sell cheap liquor at high prices like Sung-tae has been doing. Zaha says they will support the sick, and if anyone wants to return to their hometown, they won't be stopped. Cha Sung-tae says that will be difficult, but the protagonist insists they need to do it at any cost. Cha Sung-tae asks why. Zaha responds to Cha Sung-tae that it's better than having his beloved corpse in his hands. He tells Sung-tae to do everything properly, and that if he travels and finds out everything has turned into chaos, he'll make him have a personal conversation with the Cho brothers. Cha Sung-tae, irritated, insults him, saying the task is easy, and even after after agreeing to take care of everything, he's still being threatened, thinking that maybe, instead, he should retire and live in the mountains. The protagonist tells him to go ahead and do that, and that he'll find someone else to handle managing the 3 brothels with him. Soon, Cha Sung-tae changes his mind and says he'll postpone his retirement. His pathetic attitude bores the protagonist. He takes the last sip of his drink and stands up from his table. Sung-tae sees him and asks why he's taking his clothes off in the middle of a meal. Zaha asks how he could wear Chae Sung-tae's clothes without taking off his own first, leaving Sung-tae very confused. The protagonist tells him to get up and take off his clothes. Cha Sung-tae does so, calling him a thief. Zaha glares at him, making him feel cornered. Cha Sung-tae quickly says that his insults are only directed at the Cho brothers. Calling him a thief, he hands his clothes over to the protagonist to wear and kill him. But on second thought, he says Zaha is smarter than he seems and didn't think he believed that going to the Pier Blossom brothel wearing those rags wouldn't draw much attention. He believes the protagonist won't even be able to enter the brothel, as he'd be driven away at the entrance. The protagonist doesn't even respond to this insult. Then he ties his hair back, and wearing Chae Sung-tae's clothes, asks him how he looks. Sung-tae says he looks wonderful as always, and that he doesn't look like an errand boy, but at the same time he does. He also says that looking at Zaha now, he thinks he's more handsome than he imagined. Since wearing those rags that only beggars wear made him look like a homeless man, and if it were him, he'd always dress like this. The protagonist immediately punches Cha Sung-tae, warning him not to make that kind of joke. He notices that the man's old habits are coming back as he's starting to act friendlier with him, leaving Cha Sung-tae deeply embarrassed. Soon, Zaha says goodbye and mentions he'll be back soon. Cha Sung-tae tells him to take care of his clothes, while saying goodbye to Zaha. Watching the protagonist walk towards his destination, he stares at him, wishing good luck to that bastard Yi Zaha. Later, Zaha arrives at the brothel. The servants greet him and he asks how Thilsum Cho is doing. One of them notices that the visitor is looking for the owner and asks where he came from. Zaha says he came for the Black Rabbit Union and asks to be taken to Cho. The servant is startled by the mention of the Black Rabbit and asks for the visitor's name. But right away, he receives a slap for his insolence. Zaha calls him useless and says he's a busy man. He tells the man not to waste any more of his time and to take him to Cho. Immediately, the servant apologizes and leads him inside. In the hall, he asks the protagonist to follow him. The two walk through the establishment and go up the stairs to the second floor. The servant asks the protagonist to wait as he'll announce his arrival. He sits down in a spot waiting to be called and observes the place, thinking it's quite impressive. Zaha concludes that Cho must be thinking of using this room to host the union and gain their approval for creating a new union in the Murim world. A little while later, someone opens the door. It's Cho, who positions himself in front of the protagonist, saying it's the first time he's seeing him. Cho thinks that a brat came late at night and even sat in his chair. He didn't even bother to greet him when he entered the room. Cho apologizes but asks what the visitor's position is within the Black Rabbit. Zaha asks who said he was part of the Black Rabbit. Cho responds that it was one of his subordinates. The protagonist asks Cho if he's sure he doesn't recognize him because this isn't the first time they've met. Cho, looking at him, realizes that it's the errand boy from Zaha's inn. The protagonist confirms that it is indeed him. This makes Cho furious, asking if Zaha has gone mad and how he dares to do this. He asks how the protagonist is still alive since his brother said he would take care of him. Zaha mocks Cho's brother, saying that the fact that he is alive is obviously because his brother is dead. Hearing this makes Cho even angrier. Cho is still shocked by the news he received, not believing that his brother died to a mere errand boy. Zaha confirms, saying that his brother visited him and even hired some people to dig a hole. That's when he decided to kill him. Shouting, Cho asks how Zaha dares and rushes at him, seeking revenge. But this doesn't intimidate the protagonist in the slightest. He prepares to counterattack, and their hands clash. The impact is so strong between the two that it sends Cho flying back. He is startled but regains his balance. When he looks at his opponent, he notices something. The protagonist's internal strength is stronger than his. Zaha says that the Cho family is well known, but he is weaker than expected. Cho wonders how this happened since Zaha was just an errand boy for a measly local inn. The protagonist mocks Cho and asks if he has already given up. He then launches his counterattack. His sudden approach surprises Cho, and he tries to attack his opponent once more. Zaha gets closer to his enemy and uses his abilities to throw him far away. Cho is struck and crashes into the wall. The surroundings of the fight are destroyed, while Zaha, on the other hand, didn't suffer a single scratch. He looks at his hands, then stares at his opponent, noticing that Cho is coughing up blood because of the severe damage from the impact of his blow. He stands up and asks the protagonist how he can use such an advanced technique. Zaha just looks at him and grabs Cho by the neck, lifting him up. He says that it's okay for scum like him to learn martial arts, but when errand boys learn them too, it's surprising. With force, the protagonist tightens his grip on Cho's neck even more, saying that after so many years of ruling this village, he still decided to use other people's lives for his own benefit. He calls him mediocre for that. Immediately after, the protagonist slams Cho to the ground. The noise echoes throughout the establishment. It catches the attention of everyone present. The servants approach and see their lord being attacked. Zaha says that it was their job to prevent their lord from being killed and asks what they are going to do next. He simply looks at them all, saying that the leader of the Black Rabbit Union has already changed his mind and decided to postpone the creation of the sect in Ilian province. He also says that he has already used the Cho family as an example, and if anyone questions the decision to establish a sect, the same will happen to them. All the servants are stunned by him. Lastly, Zaha says that if they want to live, they'd better get out of his way. None of them dare to block the protagonist's path. However, one of them asks if he isn't the errand boy from the Zaha Inn. They start questioning this among themselves for a while, and confirm that despite his attire, he has been seen before. The protagonist hears their murmurs. and confirms that he really is the errand boy. At that moment, everyone becomes angry at him. Zaha ironically asks why they're angry about that. The men cannot hide their emotions. Seeing this, the protagonist says that if anyone wants to speak with Cho, step forward, because he will personally send them where he is. Terrified, no one dares to face the protagonist. He is not surprised by this. However, one of the men decides to ask why he killed their lord. Zaha asks if Cho had any reason to kill innocent people. He doesn't hear an answer and turns to leave. In the morning, he arrives home, greeted by Cha Sung-tae. He says he thought Zaha was going to kill Cho and asks why he came back so early. Zaha simply replies that Cho is already dead, and that's what happens when someone does something wrong. Cha Sung-tae doesn't believe it, but Zaha tells him he can check for himself. In his thoughts, Cha Sung-tae says that it's only been a few minutes since he left, and he still seems completely fine after killing Cho. He also wonders how he got so strong in such a short time. Zaha tells Cha Sung-tae to take advantage of the moment and clean the inn before leaving. Cha Sung-tae is still in shock. He thinks that Zaha is quite bold to order him around like that. But soon after, he looks for a broom to obey the order. The protagonist, meanwhile, is resting. He has taken care of the most urgent matters and can return to training. While meditating, he recalls the fight, when he used an advanced technique to counterattack his opponent. His strength is returning faster than he expected, and it makes him think that he cannot miss this opportunity. Soon, he focuses to improve even more. While he does that, an entire day passes. The news that Cho is dead is already spreading, and some say that an errand boy killed him and disappeared some time ago. Cha Sung-tae, who was walking around the streets, returns to the inn. The protagonist finally finishes his meditation, achieving the skill of the woodland, and is approaching the dark land. Even though he reached this level before, his understanding has become faster and deeper. For him, there is no more doubt. He is sure he can become even stronger than in his past life. However, when he looks around, he notices that his room is a mess, and the smell is horrible too. It must be all the impurities that were in his body. They came out when he passed from the woodland to the dark land. But Yuna's stench is a sign of his achievement, and now his body is purer than before. Cha Sung-tae, as he approaches, notices the strange smell. He says it smells like something rotten, asking what the protagonist did. Zaha comes out of his room and sees that Cha Sung-tae is there. Still overwhelmed by the smell, Cha Sung-tae asks what kind of mess he made in the room. The protagonist gets irritated by his audacity. Cha Sung-tae runs away from there. He thinks that the protagonist didn't leave the room even to go to the bathroom, which explains the unpleasant smell. While he complains about the odor, the protagonist stares at him because of his comments. But Cha Sung-tae can't stand the smell and starts feeling sick right there in the inn's yard. After a while, Zaha decides to take a bath. He enjoys the excellent water of his bathtub and relaxes in the silence. But he soon remembers Cha Sung-tae practically threatening him to take a bath. The protagonist asks why Cha Sung-tae is pointing a knife at him. Remembering this makes him angry. Shortly after, someone enters his room. He senses the presence and looks to see who it is. Seeing that it's Cha Hyang, he asks what she's doing there. The woman says she came to help him with his bath. Zaha doesn't understand, but Hyang insists that she's there to help him under her brother's, Sung-tae's, orders. She says that if the protagonist doesn't want her to do anything, at least let her help when it's time to dry off after the bath. But Zaha interrupts her, saying that he doesn't need any help, and that he's going to talk to Cha Sung-tae as well, but she doesn't have to do this kind of thing anymore. He adds that she is not a woman who sells herself, but rather a hostess who welcomes people. So he expects the girl to act accordingly. After he finishes speaking, the girl looks confused. Zaha thinks that the bastard Cha Sung-tae makes her do this kind of thing, even though he didn't ask for it. While holding her towel, the girl observes the protagonist. After that, she thanks him and says that regarding what happened before, she would like to apologize. The protagonist says it's no problem and that everything is in the past. Hyang says she heard that he is strong and asks why he decided to fight back only now. Zaha simply replies that he can only take revenge after being beaten. An old man can start his revenge 10 years later and not be late, but when it's an errand boy, the time starts counting when they are beaten. Cha and Hyang ask if this applies to everyone. He says no, because he just made it up, leaving the girl puzzled. After that, he continues enjoying his bath, humming a tune. Zaha refocuses and enjoys the bathwater, thinking about how they dare use her beauty, but in the end, he concludes that it doesn't work against him. He recalls his past enemy saying that the reason using a woman against him doesn't work is because he doesn't like the women everyone else considers beautiful. That's why they tried using several people, but it ended up failing. This is a fact that everyone knows. He returns from his thoughts, wondering why he remembered that. However, Cha Sung-tae enters the room saying it's an emergency because a fire has started. Zaha asks why he's afraid of a little fire, but he says that Zaha's inn is on fire. Hearing this, he stands up from the bathtub seriously. We see that the inn at this point is already completely engulfed in flames. Some people watch from outside as the fire consumes everything. The person responsible for the fire tells everyone to listen carefully. From that day forward, he would kill anyone who hid or helped the boy from the Zaha inn. However, someone interrupts him, Sampiang saying that his brother's body is behind the inn and he started the fire before retrieving the corpse. Furious, Sampiang asks who said that. Zaha steps forward and says it was him. Looking at the man, Sampiang asks who he is. Zaha responds, saying that he burned down his house and still asks that. What's wrong with him? With that, Sampiang recognizes Zaha and wonders what happened to the Iran boy he once knew. One of Sampiang's companions asks if the man in front of them is Zaha. He confirms. The man then asks if they were brought there to kill a mere errand boy. Confused, Sampiang is at a loss. The assassin confirms that Sampiang's brothers were planning to form a sect in Ilian province, right? But they are struggling against a mere errand boy and still want to create a sect. Embarrassed, Sampiang is surprised. The assassin says that if he draws his sword for an errand boy, the entire mirroring world would laugh at him, telling Sampiang to kill the boy himself. He becomes enraged by such humiliating words. Finally, the man says that the best option would be for Sampiang to call his brothers. Sampiang feels ashamed by these words. Even Zaha agrees with what was said, telling him to have some common sense. He tells Sampiang not to order others to do the job he should be doing and challenges him to a one-on-one fight, suggesting that they should enjoy the flames and throw the loser into them. The assassin says the errand boy thinks too highly of himself. With that, he makes a decision. He announces that he, Nung Jiziak from Hurricane Castle, will be the witness of this duel to the death. Being challenged, Sampiang is practically forced to draw his sword. Staring at his opponent, he thinks about how his brothers died to a mere errand boy. Zaha, on the other hand, admires Jiziak's cleverness, saying that although it seems like he's giving Sampiang a chance to fight, in reality he's assessing his skills. As the inn burns, the two prepare for combat. The protagonist waits for his opponent to make the first move, and then dodges the initial attack right away. Seeing that his opponent hasn't drawn his sword, Sampiang asks what he's doing. "What do you mean?" asks the protagonist. Sampiang tells him to draw his sword, but Zaha says he doesn't need a sword to defeat him. This infuriates Sampiang, who charges at his opponent. The protagonist simply evades the attack and counters with just one punch, which lands directly on the enemy's abdomen. Sampiang screams in pain and falls to the ground right after. Zaha tells him to stop exaggerating as he didn't even use his full strength. Even more enraged, Sampiang stands up and tries to strike his opponent once more. However, the protagonist says that he's very mediocre, and with just one hand, he grabs the arm Sampiang used to hold his sword. Zaha tells him that the brothers who came before him were also mediocre, and it would have been better if he had never returned to the village. Immediately after using the opponent's own sword, Zaha slashes him, causing Sampiang to bleed profusely, and he falls to his knees on the ground. The protagonist looks directly at him, with a cold and serious gaze. The people watching notice that he killed Sampiang easily and wonder if he really is the same errand boy as before. Zaha looks at his inn and curses the one who burned it down, saying the inn did nothing wrong. Nung Jiziak tells him it was a good show, and that he can say Zaha has some skill. But he warns him that if anything happens, you will see him again. The protagonist asks where he thinks he's going. Hearing this, Nung Jiziak asks how he dares to stop him. Zaha tells him to drop the arrogance and that he doesn't care who he is. Then he points his sword at the man, who dislikes being challenged. The protagonist states that if he knows who tried to kill him and set his inn on fire, how could he be polite and let such a person leave so easily? Without letting the protagonist continue, Nung Jiziak takes off running, leaving Zaha surprised by his cowardice. He rushes for the man, and with speed and grace, catches up to him, stopping right in front of him. Cornered, Nung Jiziak prepares to attack and launches an energy-based attack. However, the protagonist barely moves. He simply turns toward his opponent and looks in his direction. Using his sword, he cuts through the enemy's attack, leaving him stunned by his strength. Zaha stares at him, ready to counterattack, leaving Nung Jiziak afraid of what's coming next. However, without time to react, he is struck and falls to the ground bleeding. With that, the protagonist completes his revenge. The entire inn was destroyed by the fire. The protagonist observes it beside the bodies he left behind. The people around are shocked by the scene, including Cha Sung-tae, who was in the crowd. He sees with his own eyes the way Sampiang Cho met his end. Additionally, the hired assassin also died. He wonders who he could be. The protagonist looks at Cho's servants who were still there, asking why they burn his house, if they want to be burned as well. Immediately, the servants apologize and beg for their lives. Zaha repeats his question about why they burn his house, as no one answered his question. Cha Sung-tae steps out from the crowd and says maybe they burned the inn because it was stinking. He himself, when he smelled it, the first thing he thought of was to set it on fire too. Stillman asks him about the stench, and Cha Sung-tae says maybe someone defecated inside it. Hearing this makes Zaha want to kill him. He tells Cha Sung-tae to get everyone out of there and rebuild the inn. Sung-tae asks why he should do that. Zaha mentions that he has been too kind lately, making Cha Sung-tae think he wouldn't be hurt for questioning him. This scares Cha Sung-tae. He quickly changes his stance and says he will carry out the task, and that after rebuilding the inn, it will be better than before. Since there's plenty of space, he'll make a beautiful two-story inn. Zaha tells him to make good use of the space and build a wall around it, as well as a gymnasium and training center. Cha Sung-tae asks if, instead of an inn, he wants a training center. But Zaha tells him to build a training center that is also an inn. He understands and says he'll think about how to do that, suggesting the name Zaha's Training Inn. The protagonist tells him to find some talents while building. Cha Sung-tae asks if he intends to start the organization he always talked about. He replies that he does. Cha Sung-tae asks if he thinks the Black Rabbit Union will let this go. However, Zaha responds that if they don't want him there, he'll personally take care of killing them because they call themselves an organization, so they will only keep doing their business. Sung-tae asks what name he intends to give to the organization. Hao Mun, the protagonist, responds. He thinks that Hao Mun was the first organization he created in his past life, and that this time he'll start it there. Cha Sung-tae thinks about the name, and asks if he should call the protagonist Master Mun now. Zaha says that if he wants to, yes. And Cha Sung-tae looks at him, saying that in the past few days, he can say the protagonist is not the same Lee Zaha he used to know, and asks for permission to ask a question. The protagonist allows him to ask. Cha Sung-tae thinks about what to say, and asks why he spared his life, because the more he thinks about it, the less sense it makes. Zaha responds that he left him alive to annoy him. The answer makes Cha Sung-tae extremely irritated, but he resigns himself to what he hears, saying he thinks it's better than dying. The protagonist agrees. Later, at Cha Sung-tae's brothel, the protagonist meditates and focuses on his powers. He thinks that he needs to start improving his cultivation techniques, because he knows how important they are compared to others, as he has lived 2 lives. Cha Sung-tae, for his part, writes a few scrolls. The night passes and the day dawns. Sante has already started the reconstruction of the inn. He dedicates practically his entire day to it. The protagonist, meanwhile, meditates, cultivating even more improvements to his skills. However, someone interrupts him, and he notices. Cha Sante says that two men from the Black Rabbit have arrived, and Cho used to treat them very well, and asks how they should be treated now. Zaha says that he himself will receive them. Cha Sante asks if he intends to fight, but Zaha says they ignored the fact that he killed the Chu brothers and only want their debts paid. It also suggests that he join the union. However, Cha Sante suggests that they might have come to talk about what happened, and it'll be difficult to deal with the union if they mess things up. Zaha simply says that for Cha Sante it may be difficult, but for him it isn't. Sante asks if the protagonist wants to kill everyone there, but he says the men from the Black Rabbit will try to kill him first before messing with anyone else. He adds that he's not going to die, but that doesn't stop Cha Sante from being worried. In another room of the brothel, Zaha approaches the men accompanied by Cha Sante. He tells them to enjoy their stay. After that, he leaves and closes the door. Zaha sits at the table with the men. One of them introduces himself as an officer from the Golden Peak of the Black Rabbit Union, John Pung. The other introduces himself as Han Go Wook from the Golden Peak office. Zaha doesn't greet them back, which makes the men irritated by his audacity. John Pung says he heard that Zaha killed the Chill brothers and asks if it's true. The protagonist confirms it. His dry and direct response startles the men. Zaha asks why they're doubtful and if they, by chance, are relatives of the dead brothers despite having different surnames. Both men are confused and angered by such words, thinking that the protagonist is too arrogant, believing he can defeat anyone just because he defeated the Chill brothers. Or perhaps he's just too confident in his abilities. Noticing that the men didn't respond, Zaha asks why they are so quiet. Again, the two not respond. The protagonist thinks that maybe they came to collect, but they're being far too silent. John Pung thinks for a moment before speaking, and says that the Chill brothers gave them permission to form a sect in this province, but the protagonist killed them. Zaha wants to know what his point is. John Pung says that if he tells this to the Union, things will get ugly for him, as Zaha disrupted the Black Rabbit's work. The protagonist now understands what he meant, and says that John Pung wants him to continue the bribes that the Chill brothers paid them. This makes the protagonist not seem so bad in John Pung's eyes. Zaha tells them to have a drink first. He calls for Miss Sun, telling her to get the cheap Dunkwang liquor and bring whatever food is available. The woman is confused by what he meant, thinking that Zaha is talking about the highly regarded liquor. But after understanding, she goes to get the drink. The three men wait. Hango Wook says that alcohol is a good thing and hopes to leave with a good deal. Why don't we focus on the alcohol, says the protagonist. Annoyed, Hango Wook says enough of this, asking if Zaha thinks he can get away with everything. The protagonist sees the man slamming his hand on the table and asks if he's going to try stopping him with just his hand. This makes them wonder why the protagonist is so confident, suspecting he might have a hidden plan. Zaha asks them if they think the Black Rabbit Union can come and save them without any consequences. The two men have no answer. The protagonist tells them to think about it, and that if he were afraid of the Union, he wouldn't have taken down the Chill brothers. This makes them even more infuriated. He also says that he imagines they must be more skilled than the three brothers, since they were careless. Such audacity leaves the two men shocked. Zaha warns them that if they don't make a decision by the time Miss Sun returns with the liquor, he'll fight to the death with them, as he's already made up his mind. Hearing Sun's footsteps, he says that she's already approaching. Then he stares at the two, while listening to Sun's movements. The woman walks toward them and hears something that surprises her. The two men tell the protagonist not to worry and to relax, as they will make sure to speak highly of him to the Black Rabbit Union. With a smile on his face, the protagonist says he'll trust them. Speaking of which, they say it was very good that Zaha killed the Chill brothers, as they never liked them anyway. The protagonist laughs at hearing this. After the two leave the brothel, they quicken their pace to get out of the area as fast as possible. Cha Sante asks the protagonist if he's really going to let the two go just like that. He replies that if he kills them, the Union can use it as an excuse to retaliate. To them, it doesn't matter who rules the province, only if that person obeys them. The only person they should avoid now is the master of the 12 celestial palms, known as the Slayer. Zaha says that he will be training, and in the meantime, Cha Sante should confiscate the assets of the brothel owners and avoid any problems, as he'll be the clan's administrator. These words don't seem to please Cha Sante, but the protagonist asserts that he should be careful and that he will be removed from the position if he tries to steal any money from the clan. Cha Sante asks what will happen if he's removed from the role. The protagonist responds that he'll become a corpse. This feels unfair to Cha Sante, but Zaha says he can do that since he's the clan leader. And before leaving, he tells Cha Sante that he should be congratulated for becoming the administrator, as it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. However, Cha Sante is not pleased at all and becomes furious. The protagonist, on the other hand, just walks out of the place calmly. In his thoughts, Cha Sante concludes that it is difficult to make a living in Django. He goes to a shop and meets with Kum. The master of the forge greets him. Zaha sits at the table for their meeting. A waiter asks if he would like a pot of noodles. The protagonist accepts the meal. Kum says he still can't believe he really got rid of the Chill brothers, but the protagonist affirms that he did. His friend asks if the Black Rabbit Union will come after him, because if that happens, many innocents will die. In his thoughts, Zaha tries to remember if Kum was like this in his past life and concludes that he was always against paying protection to the Chill brothers. Zaha tells Kum that the Union will not come after him, and even if it ends in a battle, the rest of the people will be fine, since it was he who killed the Chill brothers. Kum asks if he wants to take on the Union alone. The protagonist affirms that he does. It's hard for Kum to believe, but for him, him, it's also unbelievable that the errand boy from the inn killed all 3 brothers in such a short time. After that, Kum says the bill is on the protagonist and thanks him for the meal. Zaha asks if Kum is really going to take advantage of a poor errand boy. But Kum says he's no longer that. The proper thing would be to call him a clan leader now. Duk Soo-hyun, the owner of the noodle shop, asks what this Hao clan is and if Zaha was the one who founded it. However, the protagonist asks if he's part of the clan, but Duk-soo says he doesn't remember signing up to join. Zaha says his acquaintances are automatically part of it. That being the case, Duk-soo will ensure free noodles for the sect leader from now on. He hands a bowl of noodles to Zaha and asks why he's saying that. But someone interrupts the conversation and calls Zaha outside. A man completely covered approaches, staring at the protagonist from a distance. The shop owner says someone is calling Zaha, and he asks if the man isn't one of his customers. Duk Soo-hyun just tells Zaha to be careful. Kung tells the sect leader not to be careless and wonders if it will rain soon, as his back hurts. The protagonist gets up from the table, saying that his friends only call him sect leader when it's to solve these kinds of problems. Outside, it starts to rain. The mysterious man waits for the protagonist to approach, and asks if he is the one who killed the scout known Jizyuk. Zaha says he remembers hearing that name somewhere, and recalls the assassin who accompanied Cho on the day his inn was burned. The man introduces himself as Wei Seonwoo from the Black Castle. Zaha remembers the twin sword demon Wei Seonwoo who pursued him in his past life but ended up dying by his hands. Currently, he looks younger, but the protagonist is certain it's him. Wei Seonwoo asks why Zaha killed Jizyuk, but he replies that the man burned his house. Wei Seonwoo says he understands now, but because of that, he will kill the protagonist. Zaha asks if things will really go as Wei Seonwoo planned, and if nothing will get in his way, just like his bald head. Irritated, Wei Seonwoo says he will have to start by slicing his enemy's tongue. A lightning bolt strikes between the two of them. Taking advantage of this distraction, Wei Seonwoo moves toward the protagonist to attack him. He uses his sword, but Zaha manages to dodge. His movements are very quick. With his foot, he kicks up some mud at his opponent, aiming directly at his eyes. The protagonist remembers that the twin sword demon is actually 2 people, and is certain that Yu Yangsu is there as well. Wei Seonwoo tries to strike again, but Zaha defends. The protagonist hasn't even drawn his sword yet, and dodges the opponent's moves with ease. Zaha realizes that the enemy is letting him defend to hide Yu Yangsu, so that he can then attack him from behind. With a sword in his hand, Cha Sung-tae appears to help, but the protagonist tells him to step back, because the enemy is a martial arts master. The rain disrupts Cha Sung-tae, and he removes his eye patch. The enemy doesn't give the protagonist a break, and he warns Cha Sung-tae that another one is hiding, so he should be careful. Cha Sung-tae is surprised and asks where the other one is as he can't see anyone. But on the roof behind Cha Sung-tae, the other enemy appears and jumps toward him, joining his partner. The surprise appearance startles Cha Sung-tae, and the protagonist confirms that the other finally showed up. Seonwoo realizes that the protagonist already knew there would be 2 of them. He tells his junior brother that the opponent is a martial arts master hiding his strength, so he shouldn't be careless. The 2 of them advance side by side, carefully observing the opponent in front of him. Cha Sung-tae in turn calls Seonwoo a damn bald head, and says that he will also fight, so the man better be careful. Sung-tae asks if the enemy knows what people call him and says it's fine if he doesn't, because today he's going to find out right before he dies. Ready to attack, Sung-tae tells the crystal ball to get ready, as he's joining the fight now and the 2 of them will have a fair battle. Cha Sung-tae calls the enemy bald again and tells him not to reflect the light with his head. These insults make the enemy extremely angry. With that, he charges at Sung-tae. Sung-tae defends against the incoming attacks, but they keep coming, getting stronger and stronger, until Cha Sung-tae can no longer defend and is thrown far away. He falls unconscious onto the wet ground. The protagonist notices that he fell, and sees the rain falling on his face. He says he won't believe this and tells Sung-tae to get up. Upon hearing this, Cha Sung-tae stands up from the ground. Sung-tae gets up, irritated by getting dirty. Zaha asks if he really thought his strategy would work. He says that if it weren't for the rain, it would have been a perfect performance. According to him, he could have beheaded the opponent as soon as he let his guard down. But the protagonist doesn't pay him any attention. The enemies, hearing this, say that their opponents are playing around right in front of them and become furious. Cha Sung-tae stares at the 2 of them and says it looks like the bald guy is trembling because, since he has no hair, he must feel colder when the rain falls. This rudeness infuriates the enemy even more, and he charges at Cha Sung-tae, wishing for his death. Scared, Cha Sung-tae is paralyzed, but Zaha intercepts the attack. With a smile, he stares at the enemy and receives a look of rage in return. The bald man tries to hit him by any means, but all of his attacks are blocked, making him angrier and angrier. Zaha moves with speed. Since the fight began, he hasn't used any attacks with his sword. His opponents realize his strength. Even his companion, Cha Sung-tae, is surprised. The 4 of them face each other under the rain, and the protagonist realizes this is the first time he has felt this since returning to the past, saying that fighting is very fun. Yu Yangsu notices the smile on the protagonist's face. Zaha finally decides to use his sword. He draws his weapon from its sheath and prepares to strike. An aura radiates from the sword, making his enemies notice it from a distance. Even Kum and the shop owner are shocked. Sung-tae also notices the crimson light surrounding Zaha's sword. The enemies grow tense at the sight of the sword, but the light emanating from it becomes stronger and stronger. The bald man looks at his partner, and the 2 move toward their opponent. Zaha is surrounded by them, but he shows no reaction. Both circle around him and decide to attack simultaneously. But the protagonist quickly notices and calculates his enemy's next moves. Then, with just 1 strike, he hits both of them. Immediately, a torrent of blood gushes from their bodies, and the two fall to the ground. With both eyes, Sumti witnesses this scene. Inside the noodle shop, the two men are also witnesses. The rain washes the blood from the ground, and Zaha stands still for a moment to be cleansed as well. Cha Sumti thanks him for his effort, but Zaha tells him to act as he always does. Sumti asks who the enemies were, and the protagonist responds that they were from Black Castle. He says that Black Castle is above the Black Rabbit Union. This is becoming bigger than he thought. Zaha says he's going to take a bath, and Cha Sumti says he'll stay behind to clean up the mess he made. With that, the protagonist walks away. After watching the entire fight, Kum confirms that Zaha really did kill the Chill brothers. Back in the brothel room, the protagonist takes his bath. He thinks that he's definitely gotten stronger and faster, but it bothers him to kill people who were supposed to die in the future. But it seems that, aside from the Union, he'll have to deal with Black Castle as well. In his bathtub, eyes closed, he tries to relax, and he closes his eyes to focus. But he notices sounds suddenly coming from outside. In the corridors, someone approaches. Two men find the protagonist. He sees the two and recognizes them. Their names are Song Woojum and Yoon Jongmu, two brothel owners. The protagonist asks if Cha Sumti sent them there, but the men are not interested in talking and launch an attack. Zaha applies pressure to the bathtub, and it explodes, sending water everywhere. The water blinds the two men for a moment. This was enough for the protagonist to catch both of them off guard. He strikes them in the abdomen. The force used is so great that the two are thrown and break through the wall where they are hit. The protagonist realizes that they plan to attack him now because they thought that since he was in the bath, he wouldn't have any weapons. He wonders if Cha Sumti sent them there. After that, he walks through the brothel. Zaha asks one of his servants where Cha Sumti is. The man responds that he isn't there. The protagonist hopes what the man says is true. He swears it is and that he hasn't seen him since he left the brothel. After listening to the man, Zaha turns and leaves. He doesn't know if Sumti is involved in the attack, but if he finds out who planned it, he will kill them for sure. Outside, he notices that Cha Sumte is running away from someone. He looks in the direction of the voice he heard and runs toward it. On the way, the protagonist sees several dead men. He sees all the fallen bodies, wondering what happened there. Zaha runs through the city streets and sees someone being cornered. Several men surround Cha Sumte. He tries to defend himself but is at a disadvantage. The protagonist watches the entire scene and approaches the men. As he gets closer, he sees that Sumte, although injured, is still alive. Cha Sumte begs Zaha to save him. In his mind, he curses Zaha as he didn't want to be in this situation. Still surrounded, Cha Sumte finds himself desperate, shouting for the protagonist not to just stand there and save him already. Zaha says that he doesn't even try to say thank you first when others come to save him. The protagonist then stares at all the men and tells them not to wait any longer and attack him at once. The men say they don't need to be afraid of a mere errand boy. With that, they all charge at him together. Seeing them attacking together, the protagonist doesn't even put in much effort. He hits the first one with a punch. With an elbow, he strikes another. He gets one more in the abdomen and punches the next one in the stomach. One by one, he lands his blows. The men can't react to his attacks. In the end, they all fall defeated to the ground. Seeing the bandits in this state, the protagonist mocks them, asking how they dare try to stab Chase Sumte in the back. Seeing the protagonist's attitude, Cha Sumte asks if he really came there to save him. But Zaha says no, and that he wanted to kill him as soon as he found him. Surprised, Cha Sumte asks why. The protagonist says he thought he was involved in all of this, but Chase Sumte didn't even know that the men were after the leader too. Zaha says he was having a great bath until he was surprised by the brothel owners. Sumte comments that although the men were brave, they were stupid because even martial arts masters stronger than them died to the protagonist. He asks if Zaha's suspicions of him disappeared after seeing him in his current state, affirming he wasn't with them. Zaha confirms that he no longer suspects him. Cha Sumte thinks he's heartless for still saying that after wanting to kill him. The protagonist calls out to Cha Sumte, saying those guys weren't from the Black Rabbit Union, and asks how many people from Iliang province he needs to kill, because it seems they're underestimating him since he's just the errand boy from Zaha's inn. So he asks Cha Sumte what needs to be done to ensure this doesn't happen again. Sumte says he will take care of it, and that no one will dare to underestimate the clan leader. Zaha tells him to handle it properly. He states that it must be done correctly. Cha Sumte says he will take care of everything, and that Zaha doesn't need to worry. Leaving there, the protagonist thinks that he needs another bath again. A new day begins for Cha Sumte, and he is overseeing the construction of Zaha's inn. Meanwhile, the protagonist is meditating as always. The workers supervise the reconstruction of the inn. After a month, the foundation is already established. Zaha is not content because he thought that after so much time, there would be something bigger, but Cha Sumte says the workload is massive, so it will take another year to finish. He asks if it can't be done faster, but Cha Sumte replies that it can't. He also wants to speed things up, but it won't go faster just by throwing a bunch of people to work. Cha Sumte says he found a decent person to work, so things will gradually speed up. He points to one of the workers and says the man is responsible for leading the construction team. The man introduces himself as Yeon Jae-sung. Zaha recognizes him, remembering that he was a master craftsman when he wasn't yet the leader of the Hao clan, and thinks it's curious to see him here. Cha Sumte says it's a perfect time for him to show up and tells the man to greet the clan leader. He greets him and says he was hired for this job based on a recommendation from Lord Jun Chuliang. The protagonist says it's a pleasure to meet him. Yeon Jae-sung says that according to Lord Jun, if he performs well on this job, he will become the leader of the construction clan and won't have to pay a fee to the sect. The protagonist confirms this information. Now Jae-sung is even more motivated and says he will turn the Zaha Inn into something wonderful. But before that, he has a favor to ask of the protagonist. He is thinking of building a lodge that will serve as both a bedroom and a dining room, and he would be extremely grateful if the clan leader occasionally sent them some good food as an extra expense. Zaha tells Chair Sung-tae to send people from the Mei, Lee, and Shi brothels to the site every night and make sure they provide the workers with great food. Chair Sung-tae fully understands the order. The protagonist says that if Yang Jae-sung's work satisfies him, and then he will become the leader of the construction clan. Chair Sung tells the protagonist to leave that task to him. After that, Zaha heads to town. Kum sees him walking and asks if the leader has already met with Jae-sung. He replies that he has. Kum says that Jae-sung is a very talented young man and works so hard that people even look for him day and night. The protagonist understands what he means and thinks that it's unbelievable the boy has a relationship with Lord Jun, and it will be very good to have him as part of his clan. Kum says he wanted to give the clan leader a gift to celebrate and asks the protagonist to name any kind of weapon he desires. Zaha asks if Kum has ever made anything that can be considered a renowned or valuable weapon. The master blacksmith replies that he hasn't. He says that the protagonist wouldn't be able to sell such a weapon, and if word got out, he'd need a lot of luck to not be killed after someone stole it. Even if he managed to sell it for a good price, others would threaten him to make something similar. Zaha thinks that this makes sense, and that's just the way things are. So regardless of the type, he would like a weapon that is durable, one that will never break or be surpassed by any other. Kum says that if he wants durability, a staff, rod, or spear would be a good option. He asks if the shape of the weapon matters, but Zaha says it doesn't, and the master blacksmith says he'll keep this information in mind and someday will gift him the weapon. The protagonist says he'll look forward to it and bids him farewell. He walks through the city streets until he's stopped by some men. He looks at them closely, asking why they stopped him. One of them asks if the protagonist is the owner of the Zaha brothels. He looks at the two of them and walks past, saying he's just an errand boy. However, one of the men pleads for him to wait, so the protagonist decides to give them some attention. The man says he's a messenger from the Black Rabbit Union and came to deliver a message for his superior. Zaha is surprised they are from the Union. The messenger says that the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion wishes to meet him. Since he sent an invitation instead of an execution order, it would be best for Zaha not to refuse. He also adds that if he returns alone, the enforcers will come after him. Hearing this doesn't please Zaha at all. After being threatened, the protagonist stares at the messenger, making him fearful. He asks if he really has to obey the summons of the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion. The messenger says that if he doesn't comply, he can run away. But if he complies, he won't die and innocent people won't be harmed, making it good for everyone. Zaha wants to confirm that he understands correctly that if he wants to be the leader of the province, he must obey the Black Rabbit Union, and only then will he continue to hold power over Ailiang. The messenger says that's exactly right. Zaha comments that if he ran away, he wouldn't consider himself a man anymore, so he agrees to meet the leader. With that, the messenger asks if they'll have to wait until nightfall or if he'll go meet him right now. The protagonist says that he can't meet someone so important empty-handed, nor can he go dressed casually. He asks the messenger to tell him where to go, and he'll follow the path alone. Very well, says the messenger. There is a cabin in the hunting field on Dinga Mountain. Zaha knows the way and says it's quite close. Then he heads toward the destination. However, the messenger warns him that if he thinks about running away, he should go as far as he can. But Zaha says that's not the case. He returns to his brothel and puts on better clothes. Chair Sung-tae has already heard the story and is shocked by the meeting, saying that the master of the pavilion is a killer obsessed with money and forced Zaha to go see him. Zaha, in turn, says that he wasn't forced, but is going by his own will. Chair Sung-tae says that either way, he's going to gather everyone and start a war. However, the protagonist dislikes the idea, saying that he'll end up killing all the young men in the province if he does that and will be left alone. But Cha Sung-tae insists that he will die if he goes to the meeting, since the master wouldn't let him leave alive and would destroy him because he's the errand boy who made him angry. Cha Sung-tae asks that, at the very least, the protagonist let him accompany him. Zaha asks if Cha Sung-tae is being serious. He thinks about it for a moment and says that, honestly, he's not. The protagonist says that he's only good for spouting nonsense and that he'll be back soon, so he should take care of everything in his absence. Before he leaves, Cha Sung-tae calls out to him and shows him a cloak, asking the leader to wear it. Zaha asks why he's asking him to wear his favorite cloak, since he might tear it as he's not just going for a stroll. Sung-tae says yes, that is his favorite cloak, but Zaha can turn it into a rag if he wants to. The protagonist is pleased to hear that. Wearing the cloak, he bids farewell. Cha Sung-tae says he'll wait for his return, and bows as he leaves. Far away, near the mountains, is the location the messenger gave him. He waits for the protagonist on his master's orders, but thinks that by now Zaha must have run away. However, he sees someone approaching. It was the protagonist in his proper attire. The fact that he didn't flee surprises the messenger, making him think that Zaha agreed to join the union, saying that the errand boy is truly greedy. Zaha reaches the door and introduces himself. The messenger thinks that a mere errand boy is full of himself just because he killed the Chu brothers and wonders how long this confidence will last. He welcomes Zaha and says that the pavilion master is waiting for him. The man opens the door and the protagonist follows him. In the middle of the place, a man awaits him near a bonfire. Zaha recognizes who it is, the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion, Ban Sewong. His messenger introduces the protagonist as the owner of the brothels, Yi Zaha. Ban Sewong finds it amusing that he's the owner of brothels. The protagonist, in turn, shows no reaction. He says he wanted to see who the bastard was that took over the 3 brothels, but Zaha is younger and more arrogant than he expected. Ban says that if the protagonist came all the way here without running away, then he's going to say that he'll take care of the 3 brothels and will want compensation for it. He adds that Zaha doesn't know his place and his greed is proof of that. But such thoughts never cross the protagonist's mind. He just sits in the chair in front front of the man. This action enrages him because he hasn't given permission to sit. Zaha asks why he needs his permission. This makes the man livid with anger. The tension between them frightens the messenger. He thinks the protagonist is insane as he didn't even try to please the master and expected him to come crawling to his feet, but he did worse than imagined. The master says the protagonist is crazy. He agrees with those words. This makes Ban burst out laughing. He calls the protagonist an amusing brat and asks his age. Zaha asks why he's curious, saying that he wasn't called there just for that. Once again, the harsh words make Ban furious. The protagonist says that if that's all you want to talk about, and now it's his turn to listen, and orders the man to choose between dying alone or wanting his subordinates to die as well. Ban, fuming with rage, asks how he dares to be so arrogant, stating that it will be difficult for him to spare his life now. Then he draws his sword. The protagonist immediately notices the movement, and before the opponent can do anything, he kicks him. Ban tries to defend the attack, but the protagonist uses so much force that he can't block it. He is soon thrown far from where he was. The look in Ban So-wong's eyes reveals his nervousness, but the protagonist has a more focused gaze. Ban stands up, ready to attack again. He grips his sword, but he notices that he's already bleeding from the blow he received. His messenger notices it too. Everyone present witnesses their master getting beaten. Zaha, in turn, says it's amusing that Ban claimed he would spare him, and says that it's not him who needs to be spared. Ban feels fear upon hearing this. His messenger is also terrified. The protagonist stares at his opponent. Ban looks at him and wonders who he really is, because he had heard that Zaha was just an errand boy from a local inn. Zaha recalls that Ban said he would kill him, but now he's just standing there. Fuming with rage, Ban thinks he needs to act first, and charges at his opponent. However, Zaha easily evades his attacks, making Ban even more nervous. He tries to strike his opponent multiple times but keeps missing. This makes Zaha think that even a pavilion master from the Black Rabbit Union is just third-rate trash. He then prepares to counterattack and lands a blow on the enemy's abdomen. The force is so great that Ban's nose bleeds instantly. He is sent flying far away, but the protagonist doesn't let him get too far and charges toward him again, leaving Ban stunned by his strength and speed. With just one strike from his energized sword, Zaha effortlessly slices off the enemy's head. For the protagonist, this was nothing. He then turns to face the others present, and everyone feels terrified of him at that very moment, including Ban So-wong's messenger. With his sword stained in the enemy's blood, Zaha tells everyone that this is what happens when someone messes with the errand boy of Ilian province. The messenger cannot believe that the pavilion master lost the fight so easily. Zaha looks at the servants and asks if anyone else wants to die along with Ban So-wong. Everyone hears this and is in shock. One of them says that the protagonist has just attacked the Black Rabbit Union and asks how he will deal with what will happen from now on. The protagonist asks why he is curious, since they are all going to die right there. Trembling with fear, everyone is terrified. Zaha tells everyone to kneel before he counts to 3. If anyone is still standing when he finishes, he will send that person to meet Ban. He starts the count at 1. When he reaches 2, one of the men becomes even more frightened. He kneels immediately. Instantly, the other servants do the same. Soon, all of them are kneeling before the protagonist. Seeing this, Zaha is satisfied. The reason why he endured the pain and pushed himself while cultivating, training in martial arts, and meditating while fasting. It was all for a moment like this. He looks up for a moment, then turns back to the servants. One of them asks if the protagonist is going to let them live, but Zaha asks back why he should do that. The servant says that the protagonist mentioned he would let them live if they knelt. Zaha corrects him, saying he stated he would send them along with Ban if they did not kneel, but he never said he would let them live. Terrified, the servant begs for his life, but Zaha asks why he should do so. This makes the man think that if that's the case, he has no choice but to resist until death. The protagonist says that the man is a negotiator, so why not make an offer after stating who he is? He introduces himself as Sima Bai, the secret inspector. Zaha thinks about the man's name, and he does not recognize him from his past life, which makes him think that he might have died along with Ban when the Black Rabbit Union executed him for corruption. Sima Bai claims to be honest and says that if Zaha had strength similar to the Pavilion Master, they would have fought alongside Ban to kill him. The protagonist asks what else he has to say. Bai says that he stopped those who wanted to enter the fight. Zaha praises this attitude, thinking that Bai was suspicious of his strength, the errand boy who doesn't even know martial arts. Confused, Sima Bai becomes apprehensive about what will come next. However, Zaha tells him he is safe. That is what he will get for being so perceptive. He rejoices for being able to stay alive, but then he asks what will happen to the others. The protagonist says they will die as they can report what happened to the Union, and if a war is going to start, it must be prevented from being prolonged. Then he calls the other servants to combat, not caring if they all come at once. Afraid, the servants hesitate, but little by little, they begin to draw their swords. However, Bai interrupts them, asking the protagonist if it will be alright if the men make a vow of secrecy. Zaha asks how he could trust them. Semabi asks if he does not trust a man's word, but the protagonist responds that he does not. Referring to Bai, the protagonist says he sees something in him that makes him think he would be the next in command after the Pavilion Master. Semabi agrees with him. Then Zaha says that his master was killed. With that, Bai would not get out unscathed after reporting this to his Union superiors. Stopping to think about it, Bai seems to agree. The protagonist says it is the same for the others. They witnessed him killing their master. Even if they stay alive, the reputation of traitors will never leave them, and it is obvious how the Black Rabbit Union will deal with everyone. Realizing this, Bai becomes saddened, and the protagonist back at his brothel. Zaha concludes that diverting the money might work. Bai says that since they placed the embezzled money there, there's no turning back. The The protagonist warns him not to cause any problems while staying in the Uliang province as he won't keep troublesome people alive. Sevabi understands the warning and says he will inform everyone. Zaha also tells him that he should consider what jobs to arrange for the others. Bai asks if the protagonist's sect has a name. He responds that it is the incomparable House sect. Hearing this leaves Bai shocked, but right after, he says he has never heard of that name. Not satisfied, the protagonist asks how he has never heard of it. Worried, Bai immediately apologizes, saying that he's a bit ignorant about such things. Zaha tells him not to worry because they created the sect hastily a short time ago. The most important thing is that it was created, not when, he says. Bai says that the title incomparable is concerning as he doesn't know what others will think when they hear it. However, the protagonist reassures him, saying that he only uses that title when speaking among the trash of the trash. Chesumte appears, asking the sect leader what all these things the men are bringing are and where he got them. Zaha says it's all the wealth he took from the pavilion master and they'll use it to improve the inn. This leaves Chesumte shocked. He asks why the protagonist took the union's money to the brothel. The protagonist replies that he just wanted to take it like an errand boy would like to take it, as well as the House sect leader. Such words leave Chesumte furious. He says he understands the motivation but asks what will happen if the union wants to invade the province because of this. He also says that this is the money of a powerful organization, not just anyone's. They are the kind to beat others up over money. But Zaha says that he can also do that, so everything will be fine. In disbelief, Sumti says he's going to go crazy like this. The protagonist tells him not to think too much about it, as he can easily beat up the union if they dare to attack them. That seems good to Chesumte. Zaha also says that instead he can capture and torture them, or even make them his subordinates depending on the situation. Sumti laughs at the situation because the protagonist talks about doing difficult things very naturally. Ironically, he says these are great ideas and that he was worried for nothing. Calmly, Zaha says he doesn't need to worry about it. Sumti says he would be more at ease if he said something easier to believe. The protagonist imagines how Sumti feels and says he thinks anyone would be worried in his place. Soon, he orders Sumti to gather all the leaders of the House sect in front of the Saha Inn. He agrees to do it, but says he doesn't know these leaders yet. For now, Zaha says they are Jang Duksu from the commercial clan, Lord Jun Chulion from the metal clan, and Yan Josung from the construction clan. Sumti says that now that he understands, he will carry out the task. In front of the inn's construction site, the leaders are already gathered. Jun Chulion mentions having heard that the sect leader had something to say. Zaha says he called them to talk about the sect's rules. Jang Duksu is uncertain about the rules. The protagonist says that from today onward, everything that happens in the sect will be his responsibility. If a problem arises, they will say that the leader caused it. They don't quite understand what Zaha means. But he insists that no matter who comes asking where the sect leader is, they cannot make up stories or take the blame. They must hold the leader responsible. That is the first rule of the House sect. The men are confused by this. Jun Chulion asks how this can be considered a rule. Zaha just says that he has no talent for making noodle soup, so he had to dedicate himself entirely to Mirim. Hearing this leaves Jun Chulion unsure if he is serious. They say that finally the protagonist admitted to not having talent for making soup. Frustrated, Zaha cuts off the chatter, telling them to continue. He says that in any case, Mr. Jun Chulion owns a forge and Duke Soo-hyun owns the first inn, so they have no business in the Mirim. The men agree and do not intend to get involved in such business. Zaha asks if the other two also don't have any involvement. Yan Jae-sung confirms that it's true, but Cha Sung-tae says he does have business in the Mirim. Everyone is surprised by this. The protagonist says that many in the House sect will have similar roles, but he is different. He wants to use the House sect as much as possible to prevent the weak from dying. These words elicit various reactions from those present. Zaha adds that in this world, errand boys, messengers, coachmen, blacksmiths, merchants, bakers, etc. have died countless times at the hands of people from the Mirim. No one questions these actions, and it seems it will continue to be this way. If these weak people die as the sect leader, he will always question the reason behind such actions, regardless of who it is. Jang Duksu says, regardless of who it is, and asks if the protagonist means he will fight against the already established forces alone. He confirms, saying that if they are killed by someone from the Union, he will kill that person within the organization itself. That's because he is the leader of the House sect. Such determination shocks those present. Zaha thinks that during his time as the Mad Demon, the demonic cult, the Mirim Alliance, the Black Faction, and the White Faction fought among themselves, which caused many people to die during the war. Zaha doesn't feel any empathy for those who learned martial arts and died in battle. However, he won't just stand by if he sees an errand boy being beaten to death for no valid reason. In the past, after killing without having a reason, he was easily labeled as the Mad Demon, being harshly criticized by others. No matter what he did, he was always called mad and was even blamed for crimes he never committed. To be honest, there were times when Zaha felt too lazy to prove his innocence, and due to his temper, he became the mortal enemy of the entire Mirim in no time. How could anyone understand his reasons for avoiding the Mirim Alliance while he trained to kill the leader of the demonic cult? But now it's different. As the leader of the House sect, he has reasons to fight no matter who it is, since he will be the protector of the weak. Back at the meeting, Cha Sung-tae says he didn't understand something and asks if Zaha doesn't need to be very strong for these rules to make sense. Ignoring the Union, how will he deal with all the sects and martial masters who will come? Zaha thinks before responding, and says that everything will be resolved if he becomes the unmatched one. The four don't understand what he means by unmatched one, and his silence fills the place. Not satisfied with the answer, Cha Sung-tae says that he is rambling again, and that he can't feel at ease with all of this. Jun Chuliang says he will support the sect leader, as a man should have great ambitions. Yan Jae-sung also shows his support, saying that he wants to help the House sect. Jang Duksu asks if that is really possible, because there are various sects and masters in the Mirim, as well as countless martial arts geniuses, and he has heard that they train in martial arts even before they learn to walk. Zaha says that's normally what happens. Then Jang Duksu says that becoming the unmatched one is difficult even for them, as that title is given to someone sent from the heavens. The protagonist reflects on this for a moment, and says that he himself is the one sent. His arrogance makes the four realize that he is confident. Zaha says that it's not important whether he wants to become the unmatched one or not. More than that, it's about how much effort you will put into this goal. He states that the errand boy has grown up and now wants to become the unmatched one. So they should all also think seriously about what they want for their own lives. At the end of the meeting, everyone feels more motivated. Zaha walks through the streets back to the brothel, reflecting that the difference between him and the mad demon of his past life is that he didn't have a goal before, but now he does. By taking good care of the House sect and maintaining the image of the protector of the weak, you will be able to fight against the Mirim Alliance and the demonic cult. Having a good reason, he can fight against the white faction for justice and fight against the demonic cult, and he can even kill people from the black faction without bothering them. All because he has a good reason. When a person with a different opinion from the rest of the world expresses it, they become a revolutionary if they succeed, or a madman if they fail. Unlike in his last life, he wants to succeed in his mission. Elsewhere, another meeting is taking place. The master of the Black Rabbit Union takes the lead. Everyone present waits for him to speak. He asks if it's true that the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion was embezzling money and was killed by an errand boy. One of the men confirms it and says that the evidence of the embezzlement, along with his body, was discovered in his hideout, and his men were captured. He is surprised to learn that Ban was killed without much effort and wants to know more details about who killed him. The man says it was an errand boy named Yi Zaha from the Aliang province. This information seems unbelievable to the leader, but his informant confirms everything. In his thoughts, the leader considers whether Zaha might be one of the 12 celestial generals playing with them, but he concludes that it's unlikely. He tells his informant his theory that Zaha might be a martial arts master or a celestial pretending to be someone else and asks where he comes from. However, the informant says the theory is unfounded and that the boy is indeed from that area. This leaves the leader even more confused. Some of his men offer to go to the location and kill Zaha, bringing back the stolen money. However, the master thinks it over and notices something while looking at the hall. One of the men hasn't spoken yet. He calls out the pavilion master, So, saying that he heard he has been putting an effort in his training. He confirms that he has. The leader also knows that he is more skilled than the Golden Phoenix Master and asks how many moves it would take him to defeat Ban. But the Golden Pavilion Master, So Gunpyeong, hesitates to answer. He thinks that Ban was at the same rank, but he wasn't good at martial arts and could defeat him while sipping a cup of tea, but he doesn't need to say it like that. So he tells the leader that he's not sure as he never fought Ban before, but he would defeat him somehow. Hearing this, the leader makes up his mind. He says that he will entrust Gunpyeong with handling this matter and will use it to test his abilities. So Gunpyeong is shocked because he didn't expect to have to fight someone who easily defeated Ban. He questions what the purpose is, but to the master, he simply accepts the order without questioning it. The leader says that there's no reason for him to take subordinates to kill an errand boy, as he alone will be able to get rid of him. So Gunpyeong didn't expect to hear that. The master says that if he cannot complete the task, he will have to commit suicide, making So Gunpyeong think that the master wants him dead either way. But without defying the master, he agrees to do as instructed. In his thoughts, So Gunpyeong concludes that the master is discarding him when he is no longer useful. Far from there, Zaha enters Jang Duksu's shop. The owner serves a bowl of noodles to another customer and says it's been a while since the protagonist last visited his shop. Jang Duksu asks what he would like to eat. Zaha responds that he wants spicy noodle soup. While waiting for his order, he sees the other customer in front of him. It turns out to be Gunpyeong, who arrived there earlier and is already eating. Zaha looks at him and doesn't recognize him, but he notices that he seems to be skilled. He also notices that he carries a Japanese sword and imagines who he could be, possibly someone from the 3,000 armors of the Black Faction. His nickname came because of his long lifespan, an important figure in the future. So Gunpyeong draws the attention of the shop owner and says that he heard about someone named Yi Zaha who lived around there and asks where he can find him. However, Jang Duksu pretends not to know and says he hasn't seen him lately. So Gunpyeong asks if something happened. Jang Duksu says that Zaha is a troublemaker and might have gone far away and asks why the customer wants to know about him. Hearing everything, Zaha praises the shop owner's wisdom in his mind. Gunpyeong, for his part, is dissatisfied with the answer, but soon changes his posture, saying that he heard the Iliang province was full of crazy people, and it seems to be true. The owner looks confused. Annoyed, so Gunpyeong says that the man is lying when Zaha is right in front of him. Seeing that the truth has been revealed, Jang Duksu fears for his life, referring to the protagonist as an errand boy. So Gunpyeong asks if Zaha knows who he is. The protagonist says that he is So Gunpyeong from the Black Rabbit Union, and then questions him about the tone he used with the shop owner. So Gunpyeong wonders how Zaha knows his name. He asks the protagonist who he really is, but Zaha says that he already knows the answer. However, Gunpyeong says that he is asking about his true nature. Zaha is surprised by the question and says that it's a deep question, he is not sure and needs time to think of an appropriate answer. The protagonist can't really say who he is. Seeing his personality, so Gunpyeong calls him Illuminic. Then he decides to quickly finish eating his noodles. Zaha asks the owner where his order is. Jang Duksu is surprised because the protagonist is asking for noodles when he's about to die. He tells Zaha that the noodles are sold out, and the protagonist says that he could have mentioned that before he made the order. So Gunpyeong comments that the place is quite amusing. He finishes his meal, telling the owner owner that he will pay now. The owner says it's not necessary since what matters most is that he had a good meal. But Gun Pyong insists and says that the owner must receive payment when a customer enters his shop and orders something to eat. Seeing the money in the customer's hand, Jang Duksu hesitates to take it. Furious, so Gun Pyong glares at the owner, but that he leaves the money on the table and tells the errand boy to go outside because the space is too tight. He stands up and tells the owner that the meal was delicious and that he will come back to eat again. Immediately after, he picks up his sword and leaves. The protagonist goes to the owner and asks for a kitchen knife because he didn't bring a weapon. Jang Duksu is terrified about what is about to happen. Outside, the two opponents face each other. So Gun Pyong asks what the protagonist is going to do with a kitchen knife. Zaha responds that it's the only thing he has to fight with, seeing him holding a cleaver, so Gun Pyong feels insulted. But the protagonist isn't concerned at all. He notices that the knife smells like garlic and will sting if it gets into the enemy's wounds. Zaha says to the third-rate guy from the Black faction that anyone who fights an errand boy will face a smelly kitchen knife. So Gun Pyong says that the protagonist is completely mad and can't believe the Golden Phoenix Pavilion Master died to him. Zaha asks why his opponent appeared alone, as members of his faction usually move in groups. He responds that it would be shameful to gather so many people to go after an errand boy, which irritates the protagonist. Gun Pyong says it's embarrassing to even talk to him, doubting that Zaha really killed Ban. However, the protagonist insults him, saying that it looks like he was discarded by the others. Hearing this makes Gun Pyong angry. That expression gives away that the protagonist was right. But out of patience, so Gun Pyong says he won't take any more insults, and draws his sword. The blade of his weapon even shines. He points at the protagonist, saying he doesn't know how an errand boy can be so annoying. In turn, Zaha says he doesn't know how a third-rate member of the Black faction can be so confident. This ignites all the anger within his opponent. Then he charges at the protagonist. Gun Pyong attacks, but the protagonist easily dodges. Zaha notices that the opponent's sword is so sharp and sturdy that if he blocks the strike with his knife, it will break. With his sword, so Gun Pyong strikes and Zaha dodges again. He thinks it's a waste to put internal energy into the knife. His look of disdain makes his opponent even more furious. So Gun Pyong swings several times in his direction, but Zaha manages to dodge every strike, until his opponent decides to change his strategy. However, he fails to hit the protagonist, looking at him with intense rage. So Gun Pyong realizes that Zaha is very fast in his movements. He looks at the protagonist's feet, trying to deduce his movements. But upon attacking again, he still fails to land a blow. Zaha jumps back to create distance from the enemy, but his opponent doesn't give up and tries to strike him head-on. However, just when he thought he succeeded, at the last moment, the protagonist dodged his sword. Zaha says that his opponent's skills are decent but far from being enough. Then he moves in to grab the blade. So Gun Pyong, realizing this, pulls back, retreating away from the protagonist. Zaha says that his opponent finally understood that attacking non-stop won't work against him. Frustrated, so Gun Pyong asks how Zaha can read all of his movements. The protagonist replies that as he already knows, he's just a simple errand boy. Furious, so Gun Pyong says that's not what he asked and questions Zaha if he is one of the 12 Celestial Generals, just like the Master of the Union. However, the protagonist says that he's stupid because he demands an answer, while simultaneously telling him to shut up. He adds that it's easy to dodge because the enemy's attacks are weak. He also mocks Gun Pyong for getting nervous over his words, saying that he's using martial arts that slaves from the Black faction learn. Gun Pyong doesn't like hearing that at all, asking how the protagonist dares to make such a comparison. Zaha simply says that all forces led by the 12 Celestial Generals are disposable slaves. In fact, they don't even deserve to be called slaves, because they are nobodies in the Black faction. They are merely prey to be slaughtered, mere pawns. So Gun Pyong can no longer hold back his anger. Zaha continues saying that even their women and toys serve more as cleaners than anything else. This makes Gun Pyong even more furious. The protagonist says that even if the association's given women, people like Gun Pyong are only good for pulling down others' pants. All of Gun Pyong's rage comes out at this moment, shouting at the protagonist to shut up. Zaha doesn't stop and says that, like this, Gun Pyong is showing how pathetic the servants of the 12 Celestial Generals are. The servants are under the command of men wearing ridiculous masks and are told they are only there to train and kill. Each has a union to manage. They are given secret techniques to establish a hierarchy and have fun with the killing amongst themselves, while they only care about money and women, claiming that the Black faction is a joke of an organization. In his thoughts, so Gun Pyong wants to deny this, but he can't because he knows that the errand boy has a bit of truth. Zaha asks why his opponent looks so surprised and if he thought the faction was great when he decided to join. He tells Gun Pyong not to feel so bad because the old assassin will die at his hands. So Gun Pyong is interested in what the protagonist said. Zaha notices his change in behavior and is surprised. He says that the 12 generals hold a competition and the winner learns more martial arts from the assassin. But what's the point of learning from him? Zaha asks. The protagonist says that the old man isn't the strongest in the faction and no one is foolish enough to teach their secret martial arts. He uses it only as an excuse to use the slaves until they lose their value. After hearing this, so Gun Pyong asks if that's all Zaha has to say. Then he tells the protagonist that if he's so powerful, he should stop dodging. Zaha realizes that maybe he'll have to beat him up a little to make him see the truth. With that, he extends his knife and uses one of his skills to energize it. The knife is engulfed in flames. His opponent is shocked to see this. Now the protagonist is ready to fight back. So Gun Pyong thinks that he was convinced Zaha was a martial arts master he'd never have a chance to defeat, but he says he won't go down without a fight. Zaha says he calls his technique spicy flavor, but the true name is the Path of Flames. Gun Pyong grips his sword, preparing to attack. The blade emits an aura of energy. He's confident he can achieve a positive outcome. The protagonist also trusts in himself. Soon, So Gunpyeong channels his rage and launches an attack in the opponent's direction. Zaha waits a moment before acting. He grips his energized knife and counters the attack, sending flames towards the enemy. Seeing this, So Gunpyeong is frightened. He immediately tries to defend, but the force that hit him was so powerful that he loses his footing, being thrown far away, spinning across the ground. After falling, Zaha approaches and makes sure he's defeated. A shop owner comes out to check the result of the fight. He says it's cool to see a battle between people of the Murim. Zaha approaches the enemy and starts kicking him, even while he's unconscious. Jang Duksu doesn't understand this behavior. At the brothel, So Gunpyeong was taken unconscious. The protagonist asks Chae Sumtae to wake him up. With a slap, Sumtae tries to rouse him. While hitting, he shouts insults at the man to wake him. Still injured from the fight, Gunpyeong wakes up and frantically gets out of bed, realizing that he's still alive even after everything that happened. Since he got up, Zaha asks where Rakshasa is. He says there's no way he would know, not even the master of the union knows. The protagonist asks if the master is at the organization's headquarters. He insists on getting an answer, pressuring Gunpyeong, but he responds that the master of the union is in the middle of training. Zaha asks if it's time for the ranking battle again. So Gunpyeong is astonished that he knows about this. The protagonist asks if it's strange to know that information. Gunpyeong responds that yes, only the union leaders should know about this. After hearing this, Zaha says that his house sect knows everything that happens except for what they don't know, but he thinks he only knows things because of his past life. Such a statement leaves So Gunpyeong confused. Chae Sumtae says there's nothing that his sect doesn't know. Zaha says that although he doesn't know what he doesn't know, it's more important to have the ability to quickly discover what he doesn't yet know. Sumtae states that the house sect is the best at gathering information. Gunpyeong tells the protagonist that he knew he wasn't a normal person and that he is just a clown of this sect. Zaha says that earlier Gunpyeong called him just an errand boy. Hearing his master being insulted made Chae Sumtae punch Gunpyeong. Sumtae says he must be crazy to dare call the sect leader an errand boy. Staying this scene surprises the protagonist, because according to him, Gunpyeong shouldn't be so weak as to be beaten by Sumtae. He thinks that Sumtae is only doing this because he is present. Meanwhile, Chae Sumtae scolds Gunpyeong for addressing his master disrespectfully. After that, he tells the protagonist that this guy knows how to ask for a beating. Zaha says he would like to speak to the man alone. With that, Chae Sumtae leaves, all happy, thinking he pleased the sect leader. Now that they are alone, they start talking. Zaha asks Gunpyeong if he plans to work for him, but he refuses, leaving the protagonist surprised. He asks if he should kill him instead, making Gunpyeong fearful. The protagonist tells the man that he should put aside his arrogance and answer honestly, but if he wants to die, he will grant his wish. This makes Gunpyeong realize that Zaha is really serious. Zaha insists on hearing the answer. So Gunpyeong begs to stay alive, but the protagonist asks if he wants to live without serving him. He replies that he swears never to mess with the house sect if he stays alive. Not just with how, but he won't provoke anyone connected to Zaha. With this response, Zaha thinks that he would like Gunpyeong to be his servant, so he decides to let him go for now. According to him, no matter how much someone denies it, they will become a subordinate if they are paid or beaten 7 times. And that's what the saint he admires, the Crouching Dragon, once said. Zaha then decides to release the man. He asks where he should go. The protagonist simply says to turn around and find his own path. Gunpyeong is still unsure if he can really leave, but the protagonist assures him that he will accept his challenge again if he returns stronger. But if he hears that Gunpyeong killed any merchant or ordinary person from today onward, he will kill him by tearing off each limb of his body. Gunpyeong says he won't forget this, and thanks him for the opportunity, even though he lost the duel, saying he will keep his vow until death. After that, he leaves the brothel and goes away. Chae Sumtae asks why the sect leader let the man go, saying he should have killed him. Zaha says it doesn't make sense for the leader of the Life clan to kill every person he sees. Sumtae doesn't understand the connection with the clan, making the protagonist call him an idiot. Gunpyeong walks around, thinking about his terrible defeat. He recalls that his master said that if he failed to kill the errand boy, he should take his own life. This leaves him conflicted because he doesn't want to do that. Walking dejectedly, his stomach growls. He thinks he's hungry now, and he can't go back like this. Passing by the restaurant, the owner notices that his earlier customer is still alive. Gunpyeong asks if he can have some noodle soup. Jang Duksu apologizes and says all the noodles are gone. Gunpyeong doubts this answer and immediately tosses some money into his hand. Seeing the amount, Jang Duksu is surprised. Gunpyeong says he is paying in advance for the meal. With that, Jang Duksu decides to invite him inside. Soon after, the customer is already eating. Jang asks if he would like something else, as just that dish doesn't cover what he paid for. The customer replies that anything will do. So Jang Duksu heads to the kitchen to prepare something. So Gunpyeong thinks that his future is bleak because the union master will kill him if he goes back now. He thinks that he can't leave the organization without saying goodbye to his subordinates. This makes him conclude that living is difficult. Jang Duksu says that this applies to everyone, as no one who is alive is immune to suffering. Gunpyeong asks if the owner also suffers. He replies that he does, but it became much easier since he no longer has to pay taxes thanks to the house sect. This fact about the taxes surprises Gunpyeong. Jang says that the sect doesn't force them to pay anything and protects all the residents and workers. The leader said this was the reason for creating the organization. So Gunpyeong thinks that maybe Zaha isn't so bad after all. The restaurant owner serves him another dish, saying that it doesn't have a specific name, it's just pork rib soup. Upon seeing the dish on his table, Gunpyeong says it really has a very good appearance. Jang Duksu says it tastes even better if he eats the ribs with his hands. So Gunpyeong wastes no time and eats as instructed. However, he is interrupted by Zaha, who enters the restaurant and stares at him. Seeing the sect leader in front of him, so Gunpyeong is startled. Zaha asks how they dare eat pork soup without him. Still holding the meat, Gunpyeong trembles. Watching him eat, Zaha becomes irritated. After calming down, the three sit down to eat together. Zaha asks why Gunpyeong came there to eat after he spared his life. So Gunpyeong waits a moment before answering. The protagonist thinks it must be because he has nowhere to go, which was obvious since he was abandoned by Yumin. Gunpyeong says he stayed until now because he was thinking about something. Zaha asks if it's about leaving his subordinates in the Union. He replies that it is because they are like brothers to him. The answer makes the protagonist think that the man has some sense of honor. So Gunpyeong says that many people in the Union now are those who surrendered to the great Rakshasa after he killed the organization's former master, because he kills the active executives and puts the rest in their place. Zaha asks how he survived. Gunpyeong says he wasn't an executive until recently. Zaha thinks that if so Gunpyeong doesn't go back, then someone else or even the Union's master himself might appear, making things bad if that happens. He draws Gunpyeong's attention and says that he wants to be taken to the Black Rabbit Union. So Gunpyeong doesn't understand the reason for the request, asking if he intends to face the entire Union alone. But that's exactly what the protagonist intends to do. Gunpyeong thinks that Zaha must be crazy if he plans to invade the organization's headquarters alone. And the protagonist says that after being taken there, so Gunpyeong should take care of his subordinates, as he might end up killing someone else besides the leader. Frightened, so Gunpyeong asks when he wants to be taken to the Union. Zaha stands up from the table and says he wants to go right now. The restaurant owner asks if he's not rushing things. However, Zaha says that surprise attacks must be done quickly. Both are impressed by such a statement. Zaha thinks that the Ilyang province will only be safe if he attacks the Union now, and also that Gunpyeong won't want to be his ally if he kills any of his subordinates. Later, at the headquarters of the Black Rabbit Union, the protagonist instructs So Gunpyeong to do nothing until he finds a chance to save his subordinates. He understands and waits to enter. Zaha stops at the front door and kicks it hard. It doesn't open at first, but the noise causes someone to appear and ask who he is. He introduces himself as Yi Zaha from the Ilyang province. The guard doesn't know him. However, the protagonist says he should stop asking questions and just open the door before he breaks it. The words don't intimidate the guard, who says he won't let him in, calling him an idle drunkard. With the door locked, the protagonist uses another option and leaps onto the wall. Zaha lands softly on the spot. Gazing from afar at those present, his shadow is noticed by some guards, but immediately, he drops near them and walks calmly toward the fortress. Seeing this, one of them shouts, "Intruder." Soon, several guards approach and immediately surround the protagonist, asking who he is. But he says that he has already introduced himself as Yi Zaha from the Ilyang province. After hearing that name, their leader comes out, asking if the protagonist is the so-called errand boy. In his thoughts, Zaha says that it's the duty of those in Murim to answer a question with another in a game of patience. Thus, he asks the leader if he is the rabbit slave of that old fool, the great Rakshasa. The master is surprised by such audacity. Zaha asks what would be the best way to address him. His arrogance starts to irritate the guards as well. Despite this, the protagonist asks how a mere slave who plays at being the master of a rural union dares to be rude to him, saying that the host must be insane. This draws negative attention from everyone present. Without receiving a reply, the protagonist gets annoyed, asking if the leader suddenly lost his voice. One of his men says that Zaha is no ordinary lunatic. The leader says that if the protagonist is here, it means So Gunpyeong is dead. However, Zaha tells him to stop rambling and start fighting. After being challenged, the leader asks why he should. Zaha tells everyone to listen closely. If the leader fights him one-on-one, he will be a good leader even if he dies in battle. But if he orders everyone to fight just to test his strength, then he's not worth following. Pointing his finger at him, the leader is surprised. His men are also shocked, but it doesn't end there. Zaha says that if the leader does that, his servants can call him trash or any similar insult. Because an idiot who just shows off and hides behind a mask is a worthless fool who depends on the prestige of the great Rakshasa to command his servants. The men are left speechless after hearing this, and Zaha waits for the leader's reaction. Even his servants want to see how he will respond. The masked man says that if the protagonist wants a one-on-one fight, what kind of leader would he be if he fell for such mediocre provocations? Zaha then says that he wants to send his subordinates to their deaths again. The leader says he ordered So Gunpyeong to kill himself if he failed and wonders why Zaha is still alive, saying it must be to beg for his life or something like that. So Gunpyeong appears and says that nobody cares about that because his life belongs solely to him, and he has no deep feelings of loyalty for the leader. Seeing him alive, the leader is shocked. Zaha agrees with Gunpyeong's point. The leader asks why Zaha spared So Gunpyeong's life. He simply responds that he's not an idiot like the masked man. Gunpyeong tells everyone in the Golden Dragon Pavilion to come to him and swears on his life that the leader of the House sect will win. The men obey him quickly. Such an action enrages the leader. So Gunpyeong says that if he's so confident, why not fight Zaha one-on-one without sacrificing his subordinates? The leader is too furious to even respond. His men are starting to agree with the enemies, but the leader says his subordinates will pay once he personally deals with this problem. He decides to accept the Iran boy's challenge. However, Zaha tells him to stop pretending to be strong as he was forced to do this. The veins on the leader's face nearly pop out from anger. Zaha says that the fight will be one-on-one and if anyone interferes. But before he can finish his sentence, one of the men tells him to shut up and throws an axe. Calmly, the protagonist gets ready and easily catches the axe midair. Then he throws it back. The speed of the weapon is so great that by the time the man sees it, it's already too late. He gets hit in the face by his own weapon and is sent flying straight into the wall. The protagonist says that he would kill anyone who interfered, so the servant decided to interrupt, and this happened. Seeing how he handled the situation, the leader is afraid of what's coming next. Looking at the protagonist, the leader says that he's very loud for an errand boy. Zaha just smiles at him. So Gunpyeong walks up to him and offers his sword, saying that Zaha should use it as the Union Master's blade is sharp, but his sword is also good. Seeing this gesture, Zaha thinks that Gunpyeong understands how valuable a person's weapon is, and even so, he offers his sword. Moreover, the weapon is precious to him, handing his sword to the protagonist. This makes Zaha pleased with such a gesture. He accepts and says he'll return it after the fight. Zaha draws the borrowed sword and calls the rabbit mask for combat. The man is already fed up with the insults he's heard, so he prepares to fight and draws his sword as well. After that, he stares intensely at the protagonist, who is performing acrobatics with the sword and gracefully takes his stance. The Union leader's eyes are filled with rage. Wasting no more time, he charges for the attack. Zaha gets ready to respond. Quickly, he dodges and moves, closing in on the opponent. Then they clash their swords. The impact of the two blades is so strong. Waves of energy are spread throughout the scene. Both fighters do not hold back as they attack, and they move very quickly. They stare at each other for a brief moment, and then return to their sword fight. The masked man attacks and dodges simultaneously. Zaha does the same, but with more ease. So he decides to counterattack with greater strength. The Union leader tries to defend, but is thrown far away due to the impact. His subordinates are stunned as they realize that an errand boy is on the same level as the Union's master. However, So Gunpyeong hates this comparison. He knows that the protagonist is not using his full strength. Zaha thinks he's prolonging the fight to see the martial knowledge of the great Rakshasa through the Union master's combat style. But it seems there's nothing worth seeing. Satisfied, Zaha begins to strike harder. Soon, the Union master trembles in his base. He realizes that the protagonist has been hiding his strength all this time. Zaha says he finally noticed. Then, he attacks him again. This time, the masked man feels the strike even more intensely, and Zaha tells him that it's already too late for him. Soon, the rabbit mask tries to defend the next attack. But the force Zaha applies is so great that it shakes the foundation of his opponent. He is frustrated for not being able to fight on equal ground with the protagonist. Desperate, he orders his men to kill Zaha. So Gunpyeong shouts, saying that the Union master should be ashamed for giving that order after telling him to commit suicide if he lost to the protagonist. Furious, the masked man just tells him to shut up. His men are unsure whether to obey the master's command. However, Gunpyeong tells them to stay still, and as long as they ignore the orders, he will handle the rest. Even though they are still hesitant, the men comply. The master becomes even angrier for not being obeyed. However, the protagonist rushes at him, and the masked man tells the house sect leader to wait. Zaha notices that he's been called the sect leader by the enemy, but the masked man won't back down. He tries to strike his opponent in any way possible, but he's hit first by Zaha. Blood gushes from his body, making him curse the opponent for striking him. He distances himself from the enemy, and uses a form of energy on his sword. Immediately afterward, he attempts to strike the protagonist from a distance. However, Zaha doesn't even move. He thinks that if he dodges, so Gunpyeong and his subordinates will be hit. So he also uses his skills to energize his sword, unleashing a counterattack of flames. Seeing this, the masked man is surprised. The protagonist's attack is stronger than his. It not only stopped the masked man's strike, but hit him squarely, burning him, and sending his body flying against the wall. The Union master begins to spit blood from his mouth, and a large amount of fluid spills onto the ground. It now seems that the fight is over for him. His men are extremely shocked at the outcome of the battle. So Gunpyeong says he knew Zaha was hiding his strength, but he never imagined he would leave the Union master in such a state. Meanwhile, Zaha didn't even get a scratch, and he walks away from the fight triumphantly. He calls for So Gunpyeong. Unsure of what's coming next, Gunpyeong feels apprehensive. However, the protagonist simply says that he saved many lives with his words. So Gunpyeong approaches the protagonist and says that he was only able to save his brothers thanks to him, expressing his gratitude. The protagonist seems pleased with what he heard and says that he's someone who respects others' revenge, and if any of them want to avenge the Union master, they should step forward now, because he'll send the master to the heavens with company by his own hands. Frightened, none of the men dare to step forward. Zaha is surprised that no one challenged him, saying that in cases like this, there's always someone who wants to follow their master, and he tells them they won't have another chance. The men's fear is so intense that they remain still like statues. He says it's shameful for them to act like this and gives them one last chance to fight. However, again, no one steps forward. Seeing this, the protagonist starts to walk, and the men keep their eyes fixed on him. Zaha approaches the body of his enemy and removes his mask. He puts it on his own face and says to everyone that from now on, he is the leader of the Union. This has already been decided whether they like it or not. The men don't know how to react to this. Zaha sheaths his sword and returns it to its owner, saying it's a good sword. He picks up the former Union master's sword and asks what name he gave to the weapon. So Gunpyeong says it was called Black Rabbit's Fang. Zaha says it's a stupid name. But since the sword is his now, he thinks it's better not to call it that. The Union subordinates are still on edge up to this point. Zaha tells them that they should remove the former master's body from there and also clean the walls and floor of the place. He adds that they should remember that to succeed in the Union, they must be good at cleaning. They do not dare to disagree with their new master. Zaha asks if they understood the message. They all respond affirmatively. The protagonist says that now, to start fresh, they should hold a meeting. So Gunpyeong says he will join them after finishing cleaning up the place, so the rest should head to the hall first. Zaha watches as the men follow the orders. He walks outside. He says he will assume the position of the new master of the Black Rabbit Union until the great Rakshasa notices him. Then he decides to test his new sword. Seeing this, some servants are surprised. So Gu Piong notices that the protagonist is using a sword technique similar to that of the former Union Master and is astonished that he learned it in such a short time. Zaha continues in the courtyard testing his skills. After some time back inside, the protagonist asks So Gu Piong to report the current situation. He says that, as far as he knows, thanks to the generosity of the new Union Master, many warriors of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion are alive and living in the province of Ilyang, and he asks the current master to give orders on what to do with them. Zaha tells everyone to follow the example of Master So, as he is not only smart but also cares about his comrades and courageously wanted to save them. So Gu Piong reflects on what the protagonist said, concluding that, although it seems strange, he acknowledges his subordinates. Watching him from a distance, Zaha says that besides being very resilient, Gu Piong endured well while being beaten, and he tells him to use the warriors as he sees fit, to which So Gu Piong accepts the task. The protagonist states that Gu Piong is now the Union's treasurer and also their representative from now on, so he will receive a sum of money for his services. Zaha thinks it's not a big deal, as it won't come out of his pocket anyway. Happy with the news, So Gu Piong says he will do his best. Seeing his men standing still, Zaha asks why they aren't clapping and says he will break the hands of anyone who doesn't applaud. Quickly, everyone obeys the leader's command, but he doesn't want long applause and says that's enough. He says that encouraging each other, motivating those around them, training together, and getting stronger is what defines the Black Rabbit Union. But if hatred, affection, or desire start to arise while this process repeats, a brotherhood without trust can still be formed. According to Zaha, these are the reasons that make the Union truly powerful. After saying this, he catches the attention of one of the servants and asks if he finds the meeting boring. Although the man denies it, Zaha says that if he is bored, he doesn't need to be an executive and can go outside to help the other subordinates repair the damage from the battle. Such words make the man apologize. His master asks how he dares not pay attention to what is being said by him. Soon, everyone else assumes a more serious posture. Zaha asks where he left off, and Gu Piong says he was talking about why the Union is powerful. He resumes his thoughts and asks who the current administrator is. A man steps forward and tells his master to just call him Administrator Biak. The protagonist orders Biak to give So Gu Piong a golden letter and says he would like to know the current state of the Union's funds. And if he discovers any fraud or embezzlement from now on, he will execute him first. The administrator confirms that he understood the message. After that, Zaha asks when the ranking battle will take place. Everyone is astonished that the protagonist knows about this information, making it seem as if he has been the Union Master all along. Gu Piong says that there is no set date yet, but a low-ranking Celestial General is expected to challenge him soon. A general called the Red Monkey. He says that if Zaha wants to increase his rank, he will have to fight against the White Rooster. Zaha asks what his rank is. Gu Piong responds that he is the 5th among the 12 Celestial Generals. He is surprised that his next opponent has such a high rank and asks where this highly respected master is. Bayap replies that he was offered to the Great Rakshasa by a general, a blue-eyed beauty, and he obtained somewhere, so that must be where he is. The protagonist says that the old man still has a lot of energy, considering he wanted to get his hands on such a woman. But soon, the protagonist's mood changes, and gets angry without even knowing why. The aura of his rage spreads throughout the hall. Gu Piong looks at the master and can't tell what he's thinking now because after speaking, the old man immediately became angry. Zaha says that the old man still uses his disciples to capture these poor women and asks what the Marim Alliance is doing about it, as they should imprison him for this. He asks if somehow he is wrong, but So Gu Piong replies that he is not. The protagonist stands up and says that although the old man is his superior in the current circumstances, he is falling deeper into his own depravity, which is why Zaha plans to rebel. Such news leaves everyone in shock. They try to figure out if the protagonist wants to rebel because the old man is indulging in human pleasures or just because he's in a bad mood. However, Zaha says that if anyone sides with Rakshasa or stands in his way, then he will have to be killed on the spot. Everyone is frightened by his words. After that, Zaha asks what's the news from the Black Castle. Gu Piong replies that they are busy with gambling and auctions, becoming more and more the richest sect. The protagonist asks if they still sell slaves. Gu Piong says they do, irritating his master, who says he can no longer tolerate it. Hearing this statement scares his subordinates. Zaha says that the Union will fulfill one of the Black faction's duties by destroying the Black Castle and becoming the first to participate in the front for slave liberation. His men wonder how their leader can make such a decision. And since when does the Black faction have this kind of duty? One of them decides to ask the reason for the attack on the Black Castle. However, Zaha rebukes him and asks if he thinks it's right to buy and sell people. He replies that it's not, so the protagonist says he's asking a foolish question. Zaha states that they have trained in martial arts until now, so they shouldn't turn a blind eye to injustice, because that is the duty of those who walk the drunken night of the sword. The men don't understand the metaphor the master used. The leader concludes that he feels ashamed of them and notices that his anger is starting to rise. Quickly, the servants say they will remember his words. Zaha says one more thing. For the Union's current goal, he will use resources like elixirs, funds, or whatever he wants. And he asks if anyone has a problem with that because if so, he wants to resolve the differences immediately. No one speaks up, and Zaha says he feels relieved, because he was worried about staining his hands with the blood of his executives. Outside the hall, Zaha walks calmly under the night sky. He feels a great sense of peace. Thinking that the meeting ended smoothly and it was a good waste of time, he is surprised to discover that he has a talent for something like this. One of his servants says his meal is ready, but Zaha declines, saying he wants to take a bath first, because he still hasn't gotten rid of the blood on his clothes. He removes his mask, leaving his servant very surprised because he sees another face beneath the mask. Noticing this, Zaha casually asks if his beauty has overwhelmed the man. The servant apologizes for staring at him that way. Zaha says he doesn't need to be so afraid because nothing bad will happen to them, since from today, he is the new master of the Union. Still nervous, the servant says it is an honor to meet him. The protagonist says that this is his first day as leader, so he asks the servant to guide him and show him where the individual training room and the pill storage are. Quickly, the servant eagerly agrees to assist him. After that, Zaha is led to the storage room. He is impressed with the space and wonders what kind of pills they might have. Zaha thinks there are rare pills that can be found in Murim, as well as those that were freely distributed and only a portion of people can use them. Many people in Murim use the distributed pills. He opens one of the storage drawers, and as he thought, it only has the distributed ones with nothing of value. Curiously, he opens another drawer and moves on to the next as he finds nothing interesting. His curiosity is not satisfied until he checks every drawer in the place, until he finds something interesting. One of the drawers had a high-quality burning heart pill. It can help with his current condition, providing surges of energy throughout his body. Zaha then consumes the pill and stops searching the drawers. After that, he heads to the training room and sits down to meditate. With his eyes closed, he concentrates. Calmly, he contains the flames of the burning heart pill. Using the invulnerable golden turtle technique, formerly known as traveling through the land of steel, this technique symbolizes a golden turtle that reached the realm of invulnerability by traveling through the world. Zaha notices that the Celestial Jade is absorbing the flames of the pill even before he started cultivating. So he exits his meditative state and opens his eyes, wondering what's happening since the energy of the pill fused instantly with the Celestial Jade. The protagonist tries to use that energy, materializing something in his hands. The golden turtle technique is divided into 5 stages, and he creates something from the first, which would be wood. Then he transforms it into the second stage, which is fire. Soon he contains the flame in his hands and extinguishes it because it grew too strong. Feeling that energy makes the protagonist think that the Celestial Jade was made by absorbing Kai, and life force is something that can be called the essence of existence for countless warriors. But it ended up absorbing the energy of the pill, making the protagonist think that the Jade has some strange power to absorb the opponent's Kai or even their internal energy. He finds it hard to believe, saying that he just wants to live like a madman because he has no plans to become a monster that surpasses the leader of the demonic cult. Now he's going to meditate again to see what happens inside his body. But don't give this a name because you never know what might happen. He considers various possible names for the technique in his mind, but ends up leaving it aside as he didn't find one he liked. He thinks that he went back to the past by a twist of fate and wonders what he can't do. This makes him test potential new abilities. He concentrates and moves his hands, trying to open one of the drawers from a distance, but he can't manage to do it, and thinks that there's no way to achieve Kai telekinesis with his current level of martial arts and internal energy. However, he wonders when he ever followed someone else's standard, concluding that inventing a martial art that doesn't exist in the world is something only madmen do, and by ignoring others' beliefs, he could create something that never existed. So he decides to abandon all the martial knowledge theories he accumulated, and will organize the power of the Celestial Jade to establish the absorption principle in his mind like a blank sheet of paper. Doing so allows him to better balance his abilities, resolving to try telekinesis again. With that, he extends his hand and another hand of energy emerges. When it grabs a drawer, it surprises him. Soon he's able to bring the object closer to him with a new ability. A new day dawns over the Union's headquarters. A servant sweeps the fallen leaves from a tree, while Gunpyeong walks through the courtyard. He goes to the Union's leader, saying that someone wishes to speak with him. Gunpyeong says a woman has come to deliver news from the province of Ilyang for the Union's master. If it were about something else, he would have spoken with her himself, but he assumed that his leader would prefer to hear the news personally. Zaha is surprised and thinks there shouldn't be any problems there now that he's become the master of the Black Rabbit Union. Gunpyeong asks if he can allow the woman to enter. The protagonist thinks for a moment before responding, but decides to permit it. After that, a door opens, and the woman approaches him. She bows before the master, but upon seeing her, Zaha notices her distress. He recognizes Miss Sun, not expecting to see her so soon. Gunpyeong tells her to reveal exactly what happened. She formally introduces herself as Sun Soso from the province of Ilyang. Zaha is surprised as he didn't know her full name until now. Then he says out loud that he thinks her name is beautiful, interrupting her, but quickly tells her to continue. Sun says she has an inn in the province and mentions the Iran boy from there. Hearing this makes the men in the room nervous, because they know who the woman is referring to, now that the very same person is the new Union master. The woman says that the Iran boy criticizes the drink they supply to the Black Rabbit Union, and she continues saying many other things. Her complaints are heard by everyone, including the protagonist, who has yet to say anything. Gunpyeong realizes that the woman is reporting Zaha to the Union master without knowing they are the same person. The Union's men also realize this, and they think things won't end well. As soon as the woman finishes speaking, everyone is tense, waiting to see what the master will do. After listening carefully, the protagonist says that if he understood correctly, Sun is saying that the Iran boy killed all the brothel owners and completely took over the province, calling it great news. The woman is shocked by such a reaction. Zaha says that Sun is a brave woman and asks if she has anywhere to go, but she replies that she does not. The protagonist says it's shameful that such a brave woman has nowhere to go, and asks if she would like to manage his servant girls. Sun is delighted with the offer and asks if he is really serious. serious. The master says yes and mentions that brave women should be well taken care of, inviting her to work for the union. Since she is already of age and has worked at the brothel, she must have experience, making this job perfect for her. Sun thanks him and says that if the master allows it, she will give her best. The protagonist agrees and says that, in return, she must promise him 2 things. He says that betrayal will be punished by death. The woman agrees with him. Zaha says she must be especially careful with what she says. Hearing this makes Sun remember something, and she feels like she has heard this before. The protagonist asks if it's too difficult to do. She replies that it's not, and that she will follow his orders. Then he says that Sun has been accepted, congratulating her for being brave. Extremely grateful, Sun says she will serve him with all her being from now on. The master says she really should be grateful, as he is giving her another chance and tells them to get along from today. Sun doesn't understand what he meant by another chance. With that, the protagonist says it's hard to notice with his mask on. Then, he removes it from his face. Seeing him without the mask, the woman is shocked. Ironically, Zaha asks if he's so handsome that she was left speechless. At that moment, the woman nearly has a heart attack and faints on the ground. The protagonist sarcastically asks why she fainted. Goonpyeong goes over to the woman and checks if she is breathing, saying to the union master that the fainting must have been caused by the shock. Zaha simply tells him to instruct the servants to take care of her, saying that it's insolent of Sun to faint upon seeing his face. The order to take care of her surprises Goonpyeong. The master asks if, instead, he should throw an unconscious lady out onto the street, especially after she said she had nowhere to go. Goonpyeong and the others are called insensitive. Zaha tells them to remember well how merciful he is. Everyone is startled by his words, but they agree with their master. Later that day, Zaha orders that everyone, except for the warriors of the Golden Dragon Pavilion, must do 500 push-ups, reminding them that in the Union, they must train even harder and fight. Some are already exhausted. However, the protagonist says that from now on, while others waste time eating, defecating, and sleeping, they will focus only on becoming stronger. Since they have no value in the Union besides being pawns, they should at least strive to become stronger. For the Golden Dragon Pavilion warriors, Zaha orders them to make some sandbags and place them on the backs of those doing push-ups. He also tells Goonpyeong to supervise them and ensure they do their jobs correctly. He agrees with the master. As he leaves, Zaha says that the executives will do 100 push-ups, and those who complete them will take a wooden sword and strike those who start slacking off. He even says that they can leave the lazy ones on the brink of death and break a few bones. Soon, some get excited about carrying out such tasks. The protagonist notices some men and sees them using Kingon just to fetch a wooden sword, saying that the Union is full of strange people. Zaha says it will be better for them to finish the 500 push-ups quickly, because the sandbags will arrive soon, and that means they will have to complete the push-ups with extra weight on their backs, concluding that it's much easier to finish before that happens. Soon, he urges the men to speed up, making some scream as they train. Seeing this scene awakens something in the protagonist. He says that screaming like that is good, because it's a great way to express their pain, allowing this level of shouting to happen, telling them to enjoy and scream as much as they want. Some receive blows from wooden swords on their backs. The master watches and says that he will give a golden check to the first 5 who complete the 500 push-ups, so they should do their best. After they complete the challenge, the protagonist keeps his promise and leaves the training yard. Inside his quarters, he receives something and asks what it is. Zaha comes across a book titled Asterisk Compendium of the 12 Celestial Generals' Achievements Asterisk. Bayak says he thought the master was curious about the appearance of the masks, the martial arts, and the 12 generals, so he organized and wrote down everything he knew in a book along with illustrations. The protagonist finds such an initiative incredible, especially illustrations in the book. When he opens it, a page catches his attention. There is a lot of information about the Celestial Generals that he didn't know, and he thinks it might be because the servant is involved with them. He also reads that the Red Monkey is actually a woman. Bayak says that she is a special disciple and stole an item that the great Rakshasa had commissioned, using the money she received to learn martial arts. Even though she is below the Union Master, there is no Celestial General who looks down on her due to her incredible skills and mastery of Asterisk Kingon Asterisk. Zaha knows that Asterisk Kingon Asterisk is a technique that allows the user's body to become very light, and asks if the woman is really that good. The administrator says that there are geniuses who are only talented in one aspect, and it seems that the Red Monkey has mastered Asterisk Kingon Asterisk. He also adds that the information about Rakshasa is at the end of the book, as information about the leader is always organized last. The master asks if the administrator is suggesting that he leaves the greatest opponent for last. He thanks Bayat for his service and says he will give him a golden check for his work. Bayat thanks him and says that despite not doing this for the money, he will gladly accept the reward. The two share a hearty laugh. However, Sun appears and interrupts them. Zaha says that his servant, Chief Sun Soso, always looks lovely when she speaks and asks what she wants. Sun says that a masked person outside is looking for the Union Master. He asks what kind of mask it was. The servant says it was a monkey mask. Bayak says it must be the Red Monkey. Quickly, the protagonist opens his book and reads all the available information about the woman. There are rumors that her cultivation increased due to stolen pills, and it is believed that her Asterisk Kingon Asterisk is not inferior to that of the 4 Celestial Generals. After reading, the protagonist closes the book and memorizes all the information. After that, he goes to the meeting and faces the woman wearing the Red Monkey mask. The protagonist stares at her for a while. He sits on his throne as the woman approaches. She calls him Brother Rabbit and asks if he's been well. Zaha greets her with insults. The woman is taken aback and says she didn't like the way she was addressed. On second thought, she says his hair, voice, and way of speaking are different. The Union Master is not entirely sure what kind of relationship she had with the previous leader. Soon he changes his posture and apologizes for his rudeness, saying that due to his training, he hurt his throat and his voice was altered by a fever. The woman thinks that the fact he is injured is perfect for her. She says she came to greet him, and if he assists her like last time, she won't challenge him and will leave right away. Zaha thinks that the woman is trying to take his money since she believes he can't push himself before his battle with the White Rooster. And thinking that she wants to rob her own brother, he concludes that the Union is really a mess. She says that the Master must resolve some matters with Brother White Rooster soon, and if he gets hurt fighting her, his chance of becoming one of the 4 generals will be wasted. After hearing this, the protagonist asks if she takes money from all her brothers like this, comparing her to a beggar. The masked woman doesn't like that at all and says that his words are especially sharp today, saying that they'll have to settle their issues today. The Master asks her how much she needs. She replies that she will take 30 silvers and won't come near him for a while. Instead, he can just fight her. In her thoughts, she concludes that the Master is injured and will definitely back out of the fight, even considering raising the price of her blackmail. However, the protagonist says he wants to make a deal with her. If she hands over all the money she has, he will consider them both members of the Death Clan and will let her leave with all her limbs intact. Hearing this leaves the woman extremely shocked. She asks the Master if he really means what he said. The protagonist says yes, and in addition, he will not accept her challenges anymore until she brings him the money. But in return, if she defeats him even once, he will return every coin he took from her. Furious, she asks what he really wants. The Master says he wants a fight with stakes. He thinks that stealing and betting are intertwined, so she won't refuse the proposal. The woman asks how this fight will take place, and the protagonist replies that she can choose. This makes her think about how confident he is and wonder if he also hit his head while training. Either way, she concludes that this will be good. And she says that if the Master can catch her mask in less than 15 minutes, she will consider herself defeated. She adds that he can use any method he wants, and the location for the fight will be the Union's courtyard. The protagonist agrees. The masked woman thinks that he wants to compete with her in King Gong, precisely the technique she has mastered, saying that he must have completely lost his mind. Outside in the Union's courtyard, the two stare at each other. The woman, confident, calls the protagonist to start the fight. He in turn looks at her, confident about what's to come. She says the Master is very calm, but he has little time to act. The Master tells her to shut up, asking how she dares to lecture him. He adds that he will be the one to teach her today, so she'd better get ready. Zaha states that he previously promised to let her leave the same way she came, but it seems the woman doesn't know her proper place. After hearing this, she says that such words should be coming out of her mouth, not the protagonist's. However, he rushes toward her and easily touches her mask, but he is unable to take it off her face. The protagonist realizes that she is indeed fast, and the woman asks what he's trying to do. Zaha looks at her with a surprised expression, and once again tries to attack, but this time the opponent dodges. She leaps backward, distancing herself from him, and lands softly on the ground. Byuk and Hu Biang watch the fight and notice the incredible skills of the Red Monkey, and even their master will have to put an effort to defeat her. Soon, Zaha charges at her, using all his speed, but convinced of her victory, she wonders what she will do with all the money she'll win. The protagonist advances once again towards his opponent. She manages to dodge, but not as easily. This makes her realize that the protagonist's speed has suddenly increased. He makes another charge and appears behind her, surprising her. However, with a light jump, she manages to escape. The woman has a type of wind controlling ability. Soon, she creates a smoke screen around the protagonist, and then lands on the ground. But catching her off guard, the Master of the Union appears in front of her. The eyes behind the mask reveal the woman's desperation. Feeling threatened, she leaps upwards. The protagonist doesn't intend to let her escape and extends his hand in her direction. He tries to grab her by the ankle, even from a certain distance. However, the woman feels something grabbing her and doesn't understand. Zaha simply stares at her from a distance. The woman realizes what happened and says that the protagonist has indeed gotten faster, but Zaha used an ability he cultivated before, capturing her with an energy hand. Trying to escape, she kicks in the direction of her opponent and attempts to use one of her abilities against him. But the protagonist doesn't release her no matter what. Soon he uses his strength and throws the opponent to the ground. The impact would be much greater if she hadn't cushioned the fall. Her agility made her use her hands to support herself before hitting the ground. The two briefly stare at each other, and soon after, the woman manages to distance herself from him. She channels a fire ability in her hand, then attempts to charge at her opponent, but the protagonist doesn't stay behind, and uses his skill called Great Absorption Technique. With the energy hand, he grabs the opponent's mask, and successfully removes it from the woman's face. Then, with his other hand, he strikes her. With the force of the blow, she is thrown far away. Upon hitting the ground, she causes a great impact. Defeated, the woman faints and can no longer react. The Master of the Union's allies watch everything from a distance. Zaha, in turn, says that it was an easy, comfortable, and quick victory, without any sign of difficulty. His men congratulate him on the victory. He asks one of them to check on the woman to see if she's unconscious, so Gu Pion approaches and examines her condition, asking if it would be strange if she hadn't passed out. The protagonist replies that it wouldn't and says that she will wake up in the middle of the night after they take her inside. His men are startled by this. Zaha warns that the woman might enter the pill warehouse or take the Union's funds, and happily escape like a thief, but he asserts that this won't work on him. The Master says that his men should stay alert for traps, especially within the Union. Everyone present affirms that they understood, but to everyone's surprise, the woman stands up and says to the protagonist that she learned a lot from him today. Although injured, she quickly gets to her feet and faces the protagonist with a smile on her face. Seeing the woman without her mask, all the men think she's beautiful. Immediately afterward, they look at the protagonist with a judging look. Even Gu Pyong and the administrator stare at him, thinking that this time Zaha has gone too far. In his thoughts, the protagonist says that this is what he was talking about. This is Mel's real trap. Inside, the woman is tied to a log. She thinks that she can't move because her movements were blocked. Recalling the fight, she comes to a conclusion that this man is not her brother. His abilities, his way of speaking, even the air around him, everything is different from Brother Rabbit. She thinks that she should have realized this sooner. Administrator Bayuk enters the room where she is. Seeing him, the woman asks why he's visiting. He replies that the master of the union sent him and apologizes for his rudeness. The woman asks what he's talking about. Soon, several servants approach. Surprising the woman with this, they set up a table for the administrator to use while showing off in front of her. Bayuk thanks them for their efforts and dismisses them. Then, with paper and ink in hand, the administrator observes the woman attentively. She asks what he's doing. Bayuk responds that the master of the union ordered him to draw the red monkey's face with many details. The woman is confused, but he asserts that he's just following his leader's orders because he is scarier than she thinks. Angrily, she asks why her face needs to be drawn. Bayuk replies that she's become famous for stealing, and if she manages to escape or doesn't fulfill the agreement she made with the master of the union, he will give the drawing of her face to the Marim Alliance. She is stunned and embarrassed, but the administrator warns her that she needs to stay still so the drawing can come out perfectly. The man says he cannot draw her without looking at her, just like with any other drawing. Furious at being stared at in such a manner, she yells at him to stop it right now. But Bayuk says that even though she is a celestial general, he doesn't feel all that intimidated when he hears someone the age of his granddaughter talking to him so informally. The woman doesn't care about making him uncomfortable. With that, the administrator says that maybe it would be better to draw her without clothes. However, he says it was a joke, and adds that she shouldn't hate him that much as he has no other choice but to do this for a living. Hearing this makes the woman conclude that what he says is true. Bayuk mentions that as she must have already noticed, the former master of the union is dead. Without even having the chance to retaliate, he was sent flying and all his bones were shattered. The woman is shocked to hear this. The administrator states that honestly, he thinks her bones would also be crushed and she would die. But as that didn't happen, she should be useful to the current master of the union since he has been kind to her. After that, she changes from an aggressive stance to a calmer one. Bayuk tells her to keep that attitude until he finishes. Shortly after, he finishes drawing her face. He hands his work to the master and asks what he thinks. The protagonist replies that this is a perfect portrait and says that he has successfully completed the task. Zaha tells the servant that in case the woman decides to take revenge, he should make copies of her portrait and send them not only to the Marim Alliance but also to everyone looking for a thief. This will naturally make a bounty appear for her head. Bayuk confirms that he will follow his master's order. After that, he leaves the room, leaving the two alone. The woman asks the protagonist who he really is. He says that she finally realized he wasn't the same rabbit as before. Angry, she says he can't hide behind a mask and be rude to the disciples of the great Rakshasa, saying that he won't withstand the wrath of her master. But the protagonist tells the monkey's sister that he wouldn't do something like that if he was afraid of anything. She tells him not to call her sister. But after the protagonist calls her in a more vulgar manner, she retracts and says he can call her like before. The woman asks if the protagonist kept her alive because he wants something in return, with his plan without any problem. Soon, the protagonist reveals that he plans to kill the great Rakshasa. The woman is shocked and thinks he must be crazy. She then says that Rakshasa is stronger than the people from Murim think, and she doesn't believe the protagonist is a match for him. In turn, the union leader says he will keep her useless opinion in mind and that he just needs to know if she will join him against her master. She replies that she will help as long as he pays, but the protagonist says he doesn't trust her. The woman asks what he wants from her and asserts that he wouldn't trust her even if she promised to betray her master. The protagonist simply says that his servant will arrive shortly with a poison and asks her who she thinks will be poisoned. She doesn't answer. The protagonist states that she will definitely take the poison. In her mind, the woman calls him insane for intending to poison her. Desperate, she says that instead he can just give her an order and she won't betray or fail him, because he has her portrait as leverage. The union leader says he knows that, but he still doesn't trust her. His subordinate, Gu Pyong, finally arrives with the purple curse mist poison he had requested. Upon hearing this, the woman becomes even more frightened. He unwraps a poison sphere, and his master orders him to give it to her. Gu Pyong approaches the woman and tries to make her eat it by force. Even with the poison in her mouth, she refuses to swallow it. Gu Pyong asks the master what he should do next. The protagonist simply says for him to beat the woman until she swallows. But before he does so, she swallows the sphere herself and says she's ready to talk. The protagonist says he will give her 10 days, and if she returns after killing the white rat, the green dog, or the yellow horse, he will deliver the antidote. He says these are generals with whom she can fight to the death, so it won't attract the wrath of the great Rakshasa. The woman says that those three are known for their evil deeds, murders, and thefts. Soon, the protagonist remarks that she is very perceptive, as expected from a thief. Then he releases her from the ropes. After being freed, the woman changes the subject and asks who he really is and which part of the Marim Alliance he belongs to. The protagonist responds that he is just a messenger from a nearby city. Gu Pyong is shocked that he revealed himself so easily. But the woman doesn't believe him, thinking he is saying anything to hide his true identity. And she says she will return after killing one of her targets, and then she'll ask the question again. Once more, Goon Pyong is surprised that she thinks she heard a lie. The protagonist doesn't bother to make her believe, and before she leaves, he says that despite having taken the poison, she still has a choice, as she can side with her master and reveal her identity to him. She asks what she will gain from her false brother if she supports him. The protagonist replies that not much, she just won't need to see her master in the miserable state he's in, ordering his disciples to do terrible things. The woman quickly reflects on this, but then she bids farewell and leaves. Afterwards, Goon Pyong tells his master that the poison was poorly made and asks if everything will be fine. The protagonist asks what it really was that he gave her. Goon Pyong responds that he just took some stomach medicine and laxatives, combining them to make a pill. He mentions that the woman might defecate while she's running. Zaha says that, as expected from the pavilion master, he thought of every detail. Unaware of this, the woman runs towards her next destination. The woman runs through the streets, using all of her speed. However, she feels a pang in her stomach. She thinks that the pain might be due to the poison, wondering why the protagonist made her eat that. She remembers his last words about Rakshasa ordering his disciples to kidnap women, steal, and kill. With that, she questions the motive given to betray her master, saying that the protagonist is truly crazy. However, she continues to feel her stomach hurting. It seems to be getting worse and worse. She tries to figure out what it could be, imagining that it could be anything but not diarrhea. Soon she is in shock, because the pain and the urge come stronger than before. She can't hold it in any longer, begging her stomach to hold on until she reaches an appropriate place. But her eyes begin to blur, and she gradually loses control of her vision. Desperate, she tries to find a solution. The people passing by her are already starting to notice an unpleasant smell, trying to hide it, but she can't, as her expression gives everything away. In an open area, she walks, trying to find a place to use, where no one is watching. She thinks of using all her internal Kai in her stomach. After walking in pain, she finds a secluded spot in the middle of some bushes, thinking that there she can have the privacy to release the demon inside her. However, in the midst of the trees, someone approaches at high speed. She notices the movement, saying that this person is as fast as she is. Looking up, she then sees someone, who lands right in front of her. Embarrassed, she doesn't know how to react. The man asks if she's having some problem, as her face is pale. The woman can only say one word, poison, but she immediately regrets it, as she can't be careless around someone from the Murim. So she decides to say that she is looking for a bathroom. The man then understands the problem, and holds her, saying that he is heading to a store that's a regular customer, and he won't let her do it in the middle of the forest. With no other option, she agrees to go with him, saying she'll be under his care. Even with an unpleasant smell, the man agrees to carry her to the destination. The woman feels extremely embarrassed. The man quickly carries her, and says that she can overcome any problem if she remains calm. She agrees and realizes that the man's speed makes him a true master. She also notes that he has a nice voice and wonders where he could have come from. With her on his back, the man leaps over the trees, almost flying. When they arrive in front of the store, he tells her to go to the back, and the woman does just that. She uses all of her speed to rush to the bathroom. Inside the bathroom, she feels a sensation of both relief and discomfort, wondering why the sounds her body is making right now are so loud. After finishing, she feels much more relieved, and thinks that she can't bear to look at the man who helped her, as she feels embarrassed just imagining that he heard everything. But the man is not in front of the store, so she decides to enter the establishment. Inside, she sees the man, who asks if she is feeling better. The woman replies that she is, as everything went well thanks to him, and thanks him. The owner of the establishment serves a dish to the man, saying that his luck with food is quite good, because he would have used the last piece of meat in a soup if the man hadn't arrived in time. The man says that at least he's lucky in some aspect of his life. Seeing the meal, the woman's mouth starts watering, and she asks what dish it is because it looks delicious. The restaurant owner is Jang Duksu, and he responds that the dish is pork ribs. As he eats the meat, we see that the man is in fact the protagonist. The woman still doesn't know if his face got the mask and simply craves the meat. Jang Duksu says she can sit down and try it, but she claims that her stomach isn't feeling well. The protagonist insists that she should at least take a bite. She looks at the pork ribs and thinks they look really good, and it won't hurt if she just takes a single bite. But she feels embarrassed to accept the dish. Jang Duksu reassures her, saying that she can use her hands to hold the bone and eat. They both sit at the table to eat, and she finally tastes the meat, thinking that it tastes really good. Jang Duksu whispers, asking what the reason is for her being there. Zaha simply replies that she is his sister. Hearing this, she is shocked, and immediately recognizes his voice. Remembering everything that happened before, she becomes angry for having been deceived. But as she stares at him, sarcastically the protagonist asks if he is really that handsome. Furious, she thinks that she was poisoned by the same guy who saw her in an embarrassing situation. Her sudden outburst of anger causes her to faint, falling onto the ground right afterward. Zaha comments that it's rude for her to faint in the presence of her own brother. Or maybe it was because she liked the food so much. While the woman remains unconscious, a protagonist continues eating. Jang Duksu asks if he really became the master of the Black Rabbit Union. He responds affirmatively. He adds that the woman is one of the 12 celestial generals, the Red Monkey. With this reply, Jang Duksu understands why the protagonist called her his sister, mentioning that she is also very beautiful. Zaha asks if he fell in love with her. Embarrassed, Jang Duksu denies it. Then the protagonist tells him to simply ignore her. He asks the woman if she can stay lying there when she has only 10 days left. The woman quickly gets up and says no, affirming that she will complete the task within the deadline. She thanks the restaurant owner for the food. Jang Duksu is pleased and tells her to come back anytime. Shortly after, the woman says goodbye. But after leaving, she becomes very irritated. And as she looks back, she sees the protagonist making a gesture, saying that in 10 days she will die. With that, she becomes even more frightened and runs away as fast as she can. The protagonist decides to leave as well. Jang Duksu asks why the rush, and Zaha replies that he's just going for a walk. Jang Duksu and wishes him a great day. While walking, Zaha thinks that his body feels lighter after training at Kingang after so long, which reminds him of when he joined the Swift Group. The mysterious force that most people in Mirin don't know about, the Swift Group, which only accepts new members who reach the peak of their Kingang. And filled with lunatics who train until they die, they compete against each other using Kingang, regardless of the sect they belong to. All to achieve the title of the fastest under the heavens, the Swift King. Although Zaha managed to enter the group in his past life, he couldn't achieve that title. He hopes to meet the masters of the Swift Group he already knows soon. After walking a bit, he arrives at his inn. Yan Jaesung greets him cheerfully. He asks if he can speak informally to the protagonist. He responds affirmatively. Jaesung says he heard from Sumtae that he invaded the Union and became the new master. Zaha confirms it and says he took on the responsibility of leadership. He asks if anyone has caused any trouble recently. Yan Jaesung replies that there is the soldier Sama with a ponytail, and he frequently patrols the province with his subordinates. So no one has the courage to cause any trouble. Zaha asks about Cha Sungtae. Jaesung responds that he had a training match with the soldier Sima B and ended up losing miserably. After that, he trained harder, but has already lost 10 times. This has become a famous attraction in the province, so whenever the two fight, many people stop to watch. Zaha feels embarrassed just imagining it. Then he gives something to Yan Jaesung. He asks what it is, but upon opening the package, he sees that they are golden plates. Zaha tells him to take good care of them and buy drinks for the people from time to time, due to their great effort in the construction work. The boy is surprised to have received so much money. After that, the protagonist bids farewell and says that he can use the plates whenever he wants. Yan Jaesung thanks him and wishes the master a safe return. Zaha leaves the place happily. Afterwards, he walks through a forest. When he encounters some men, he sees them from afar, but tries to pass unnoticed. However, one of them recognizes Zaha. The protagonist turns to the stranger and sees that he is well accompanied. The man says that the protagonist seems to be Yi Zaha. One of them looks at a drawing and notices that it's indeed him. Zaha asks if they are the scum sent by the Black Castle. The man does not like hearing this at all. One of his subordinates says he didn't expect to find Zaha there and asks what they should do. The protagonist thinks that they came to cause trouble in the province during his absence, as the sects often do this, tormenting those close to their targets. Soon, the unknown man approaches him, introducing himself as Dak Gozeng from the Black Castle. He says that he heard Zaha killed some members of his organization. Because of that, the master of the castle put a bounty on his head. They were on their way to post a wanted poster in the province of Ilyang when they ran into Zaha. The subordinate goes up to the protagonist to show him the poster. Zaha thinks that it is common courtesy to not accept anything from the Black faction. With the man in front of him, he remains still, not showing any reaction to it. Dak Goseng says that if the protagonist follows him to the Black Castle, his master will remove the bounty as long as he pays properly, and he asks what Zaha is going to do. The protagonist comments that there are too many of them for someone who only came to put up a poster. Dak Goseng says it's for precaution due to the rumors going around. Zaha says that this excuse is acceptable, but in his thoughts he mentions that for some days now he has been feeling strange, where he feels nothing after beating so many people to death, and there are days when he avoids killing without a plausible reason. This is one of those days. He still doesn't have a reason, but he wouldn't be called a crazy demon if his actions had a bit of logic. With that, he is uncertain about what to do. Zaha then turns and tries to leave, saying that he is not in the mood to visit the castle's master now, but will see him soon. Annoyed, Dak Goseng says it would be better if Zaha agreed to go with them now. However, the protagonist asks Dak Goseng why he is trying to get himself killed along with his subordinates. Dak Goseng says he will not tolerate the protagonist's actions after he killed his friends, stating that even after that, he intends to run away and explain himself later. His subordinates are also irritated. Dak Goseng says it will be the same whether the protagonist kills everyone there and goes to the castle later, or goes with them now and avoids a visit from his organization afterward, stating that either choice will be bad for the protagonist. After hearing this, Zaha realizes that Dak Goseng is not afraid to die, so he agrees to go with them to the Black Castle. He thinks that in this life, when he wears a mask, he becomes the master of the Union who develops forces to support the Black faction. But when he is barefaced, he ends up becoming a crazy demon once again. On a boat, Zaha accompanies the men through the Hornless Dragon River. The boat gradually moves away from the shore. Zaha looks at his city from a distance and briefly bids farewell to his hometown as he says he is leaving to make some money and will return after making it big. Hearing this makes the other passengers irritated. The protagonist tells the citizens to be sure to welcome him when he returns. With that, the messenger boy sets off on a boat. The others think he must be crazy to say such things. Zaha observes the passengers attentively, while the rest are just waiting to arrive at their final destination. He looks around every corner of the boat. Seeing the other passengers there, the protagonist says that those men are very ugly and imagines the type of repulsive things they must have done. But there's a handsome guy he knows who has committed several repulsive and perverted acts. The demon of two-player games the left hand of light. With that, he concludes that an ugly face doesn't necessarily relate to ugly actions. However, in any case, he wants to know why the men on the boat are so ugly, and wonders if it's because they've encountered so many ugly things that they ended up that way. Dak Goseng asks what he means by ugly things. Zaha replies that he's heard that the Black Pearl Fortress is involved in slave auctions. One of the men tells him to stop talking and just shut up. However, the protagonist insults him and says he's not done talking, also affirming that if the man wants his daily bread, he should work for it and not be complicit in the selling of people. The man says that besides earning his daily bread, he also works to buy slaves. That's how he thinks. Soon, everyone bursts out laughing at what he said. Angry, Dak Goseng tells everyone to shut up before they get killed. Then everyone decides to obey the order. Dak Goseng thinks that the men can't read the atmosphere of the protagonist, who is about to fight the master of the fortress right in front of them. Zaha looks at the horizon with disdain, and Dak Goseng asks if he will let them live. Without reacting, Zaha continues doing what he was doing. He thinks it's not right, but ever since he left his province, his level of madness is starting to ascend. Although he doesn't want to live as the crazy demon of the past, Dak Goseng insists on asking if he will spare their lives. The protagonist responds that they must fight among themselves, and thus he will allow the last one standing to remain alive. With that, Dak Goseng becomes nervous. The others don't quite understand what's about to happen. The unit leader stands up and draws his sword. Soon, all the others do the same. Then they fight each other, right there on the boat. Zaha doesn't even pay attention to this and keeps looking at the horizon. On the waters where the boat sails, a large stain of blood appears. On the boat, only Goseng remains standing. Seeing this, Zaha says that he will keep his promise and let him live. Exhausted from the fight, Goseng sits down, and the protagonist asks him how the Black Pearl Fortress has been these days. Dak Goseng simply replies that it's full of idiots. Zaha just smiles upon hearing this. The boat continues toward its destination, where it finally arrives at the ancient city of Black Sand at the military fortress. From afar, the protagonist notices something. The boat docks at the pier, and some men approach them from a distance. Dak Goseng, furious, tells them to back off because he brought Eli Zaha as per the master's orders. The guards become calmer, and Dak Goseng asks the protagonist to follow him. The two walk inside. Zaha notices that the Black Pearl Fortress has civilians. He thinks it makes sense since some people are dragged there as slaves. Shortly after, they reach their destination. A servant asks what Dak Goseng is doing there, and he replies that he brought Zaha to the master of the fortress. The servant asks who he is. Dak Goseng responds that the protagonist is the man who killed unit leader Wei. Now the servant recognizes him. Then they enter the master's hall. Surrounded by his subordinates, the protagonist notices that some of them look quite old, and wonders why they are doing such repulsive things since they are too old to even enjoy the money and glory. Dak Goseng introduces himself to the master and says that he has fulfilled the order to bring Yi Zaha. Everyone is surprised by this. The master of the Black Pearl Fortress stares at him. Zaha, in turn, tells one of the old men to get out of his chair so he can sit down. The old man doesn't quite understand, but soon he is slapped and is thrown far away from the chair. All the others are shocked by this attitude. The protagonist drags the chair to the center of the hall and sits down in front of the fortress master. One of the men becomes agitated by such behavior, but his master orders him to stop. Still nervous, the man returns to his place. He and the others wait to see what their master will do. The man stares at Zaha and says that since he had a long journey to get there, he will get straight to the point. He says that the protagonist killed 3 people from the Black Pearl Fortress, and he heard it was because his house was burned down. Zaha confirms. The fortress master says that since his people acted first, he can leave after they cut off 3 of his fingers. But the protagonist disagrees and says that the old man can't just go around cutting off the body that was given to him by his parents. Then the old man changes the offer to a finger and 100 gold coins, stating that the protagonist has to pay somehow for the damages he caused. Saying that this is all. After concluding, his men thank him for his excellent work. Zaha thinks that the old man wants to settle things one-sidedly, concluding that there are truly crazy people in the world. He says he rejects the offer because he doesn't have the money, and even if he did, he wouldn't give it. Hearing this leaves the subordinates shocked. The master of the stronghold says that his organization always gets what it wants one way or another, and the protagonist's family will have to bear the cost if he doesn't. However, Zaha states that he has no family and hopes to have one someday, and also dreams of having noodle soup. The stronghold's subordinates are increasingly shocked every time the protagonist says something. Their master tells Zaha that if he has no family, they will demand payment from the people of his village, asking if he agrees. Zaha, in turn, calls him annoying, saying that he also has a sentence, telling the old man to choose between kneeling and kissing his foot, or everyone present in the room will die. Now fear has completely taken over them. Even Dak Goseng is terrified. However, their master doesn't believe the protagonist's words. Dak Goseng thinks the protagonist is out of his mind, because he's not only provoking the master, but also all the elders. Soon, the tension in the air spreads, and everyone else arms themselves and surrounds the protagonist. But Zaha doesn't show any reaction. He simply rises from his chair. Seeing this, the old man calls him a fool, saying that he gave him a chance. But Zaha insists on spilling blood. Zaha responds that the only fool there is the old man himself, as he gave him a chance to live, but he wasted it. Dak Goseng becomes even more tense. Tired of talking, the old man gives the order for the others to kill the protagonist, and so they do, rushing at him. However, the protagonist easily dodges his opponents, countering them with strength. He even throws some of them around the room. Another one charges at him with axes, but Zaha easily stops him, striking the man right after. The elders are no match for him, being caught off guard at every moment. One of them even tries to attack from a distance. However, the protagonist deflects the attacks. and throws them back in his direction. The knives land far from him, but some weapons are close to the protagonist, so seeing a sword in midair, he grabs it to use against his enemies. Soon he effortlessly slices through those in front of him, spreading blood everywhere. The bleeding men fall to the ground, and the protagonist stands triumphantly over them. Next, he waits for the others to attack. Their master just watches from afar. One of the men wonders how someone like the protagonist can exist. Afraid, they hesitate to attack. Anxious, Gosang awaits the conclusion of the fight. Zaha asks why they are not attacking him, but fear has paralyzed the two. So Zaha decides to approach them. Then he takes the initiative and charges. One of the men even tries to attack him, but is struck immediately after. Another one tries to catch him by surprise. However, the protagonist manages to grab the opponent's sword, throwing him far away afterward. Zaha's foot movements are quick. He turns and already hits another enemy. Some furious remaining ones charge at him. However, Zaha doesn't flinch and waits for them to approach. Then he effortlessly slices through all of them. Both the men and their weapons are cut apart due to the protagonist's strength. Seeing this makes Gosang even more anxious. Their master, however, remains unmoved. His men are dead, lying in pools of blood. The protagonist's sword is the only one standing, alongside him, who is unscathed even though he's covered in the blood of his enemies. The old man looks at this scene and congratulates the effort of his fallen men. Zaha tells the old man that he should stop being so pompous when all he did was watch his subordinates die while hoping he would get tired. Realizing the protagonist's sharpness, the old man becomes irritated. Then the master draws two swords and launches an attack toward his opponent. Zaha doesn't back down and counters. Their energies clash in midair, creating a large cloud of smoke around them. Immediately after, the old man appears and tries to catch the protagonist off guard. Zaha blocks the enemy's attacks, but the castle's master continues to strike heavily. Even though his attacks are blocked, he doesn't stop. Their swords clash violently. The protagonist hasn't attacked yet and is only defending himself. The smoke generated continues to spread. The furious old man stares at the protagonist, who looks back at him. Then Zaha finally attacks the enemy, creating a great impact with his strength. Gosang is still there, but he can't see anything. Debris is being thrown in all directions, along with the smoke, which only increases. The protagonist faces the old man head-on. His sword is blocked by the opponent's two swords, when suddenly, it breaks in half, forcing him to step back. This is not common, surprising the protagonist. Seeing his weapon break somewhat frustrates him, but his opponent, on the other hand, is delighted. He realizes that the protagonist is now unarmed, and tries to use this to his advantage, attacking him right after. However, as he dodges, Zaha resorts to his magical powers, and with his energized hand, he pulls out another sword. Gosang is very surprised to see this. Zaha quickly returns to the fight, saying that he is no longer without a weapon. The old man becomes irritated with him once again, and insists on attacking him relentlessly. Zaha counters the attacks he receives. The two fight fiercely with their swords. The surrounding area is heavily damaged. The power emitted by both is immense. Zaha had never faced an opponent like this before. He notices the old man's strength and thinks that he would be as strong as Gosang if he had trained with the sword for 40 years. Back in the fight, he strikes the old man. At the same time, he defends against his attacks. Both do the same in the battle. However, Zaha, who has been observing the old man all this time, comes to the conclusion that he doesn't seem to be in good condition. Although he is strong, his movements are not sharp. The old man's feet don't move as they should, and his breathing is labored. The two are analyzing each other. The old man glares at the protagonist, and he also watches the old man. In a moment of carelessness, the old man is almost grabbed by Zaha, but he manages to dodge at the last second. Zaha pursues him, not letting him get away, and strikes him with his sword. The old man uses his weapons to defend himself, but the force of the impact is so great that he falls to his knees on the ground, feeling the pain of the blow. Subjugating the old man, Zaha stares at him. He uses his magical powers and hits him directly, sending the old man flying far away. Then the protagonist wields his sword, heading towards the enemy. Noticing his approach, the old man is frightened. He realizes what will happen if he gets hit, and then it happens with Zaha striking him precisely. Bleeding, the old man is thrown against the wall. He is extremely wounded, unable to move anymore. Gosang is stunned by his defeat. Even the others present can't believe what they're seeing. Before dying, the old man tries to say something. He asks the protagonist to allow his subordinates to take care of him, saying that he will then recommend him as the next master of the fortress, claiming that Zaha has nothing to lose with this. But if he kills him now, he won't be able to completely take over the Black Fortress. Since all the servants are nothing but idiots, the old man needs to lead them. However, Zaha simply says that, out of nowhere, the old man has decided to speak, showing that he really doesn't want to die. The old man is shocked by him. Zaha states that the old man has lived well until now and earned a lot of money by kidnapping and selling people, making their lives a true hell. Not to mention killing countless innocents who begged for their lives just like he's doing now. The protagonist extends his energized hand, saying that trash like the old man should die for the good of everyone. Seeing his death approaching, the old man falls into despair. After that, only spilled blood casts its shadow over the old man. Gosang is shocked to witness this. His former master was completely destroyed. Zaha looks at the remaining people, who are also in shock at the death of their leader. Gosang says that now Zaha should become the next master of the fortress. The protagonist asks him to come closer. Gosang complies with the request. But as he gets close to the protagonist, he receives a slap across the face and falls to the ground right afterward. Zaha grabs him by the hair, saying that he's been testing his patience and asking if he wants to pay a visit to the former master of the fortress. Go-Sang doesn't know what to answer, saying only that he doesn't know what to do now that his former master is dead. The protagonist notices something in that. He remembers that before dying, the old man warned that everyone in his organization was an idiot. So he orders Go-Sang to return to the hall after gathering everyone directly under the executives and dealing with the elders who survived. Zaha thinks that if the organization were as strong as the Black Rabbit Union, he could easily absorb it. However, the castle has already blended in too much with the public, making it impossible to distinguish who is from the Murim and who is not. He thinks he needs to pay the price for having beaten someone to death. After some time, Zaha organizes a meeting with the remaining members of the castle. He says that for him, the best option is to appoint a master and have the entire Black Pearl stronghold under his command. They both listen attentively, but appear confused. Zaha says he will appoint Go-Sang as the next master of the stronghold. His first task as master of the stronghold will be to mobilize everyone available to destroy that old wall. Go-Sang asks why the wall. Zaha asks if he really needs to explain. Everyone present affirms that he does. The protagonist says that they may believe that this wall keeps them safe, but is completely useless against the martial masters of Jianghu, because the fact that the master of the Black Pearl stronghold, the strongest among them, couldn't keep himself alive is proof of this. Now everyone understands what the protagonist is saying. He continues by stating that also because they are so isolated, they don't communicate with anyone outside the wall, and asks if they don't think they need to understand what he's saying for things to change. In his thoughts, the protagonist wonders if these guys really understood what he meant, but he quickly grows tired of all this, and says that anyway, they should start by destroying the wall and also go out more, exploring the vast world beyond. The men agree to follow the orders. Zaha says that when he comes next time, if he sees that they are still holding slave auctions or collecting gambling debt loans, or if there is anything that stirs his emotions the wrong way, he will first kill Go-Sang and then continue killing each captain whose face he can remember. Everyone is shocked to hear this. The protagonist says they should send their greetings to the old master of the stronghold when they reach the afterlife. Silence fills the room after he speaks. However, a subordinate interrupts and asks the protagonist to explain more details about the method. But Zaha says he's already explained enough and asks what the man was thinking to not pay attention. Moreover, he orders them to figure out the details on their own. If they can't even do that, then they should go clean up the bodies and destroy the wall with the others instead of just sitting there. He also adds that it's because of people like him that this organization ended up like this. Zaha tells everyone to listen carefully. From now on, they should ask the man who questioned him about the details of anything they have doubts about. The others stay silent, but the protagonist makes them respond that they understood, and they all say, "Yes, sir." He also orders that the name Black Pearl should be changed to a new one that doesn't include the word black, as it makes it too obvious they are part of the Black faction. One of the men present raises his hand and asks if they can use white instead. The protagonist asks if he is from the White faction. The man replies that he isn't. Zaha says that knowing this, he still asks such a question and says that even for naming, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. He also adds that the man shouldn't ask anything else until the meeting is over. He quickly understands and lowers his head. The protagonist says that this is very tiring and gives another order to reduce the rules to 3. One of them asks if the protagonist really wants to reduce over 100 rules to just 3. Zaha is impressed by the number of rules, but says they should start with 3 and discuss among themselves if they wish to add more. He also says they should abolish the tolls and release captives, burn all documents related to bounties and such, and stop stealing from the stronghold's treasury. They should use it to help the needy and build proper homes for them, and hire some people from outside to construct some buildings. After this, Zaha asks if everyone understood, but no one answers the question. The protagonist asks what's wrong with the atmosphere in the room. One of them responds that the former master used to say this a lot, even though it's not the same thing. It's quite similar. He asks if the others agree, and they do. Frustrated, the protagonist looks at Go-Sang and notices that he's also irritated. The two exchange brief glances, and Zaha tells Go-Sang to do his best and also requests a new set of clothes. Even irritated, he says he will do so. Sometime later at dusk, someone approaches the Black Rabbit Union headquarters and a guard asks who it is. The protagonist introduces himself as the master of the union. He quickly recognizes his leader and says to him, "Welcome back." Zaha asks why it is so quiet there, wondering if they have slacked off in training during his absence. His administrator welcomes him back. The protagonist asks why no one is training. Bayek replies that it's not the case, but the Golden Boar is there. Zaha confirms it's the same one among the 20 Celestial Generals. His servant says yes. As they walk, he mentions that according to the Conquest collection, no one knows if the Golden Boar earned his title due to his gluttony or if it's the other way around. His martial skill is ranked between the 7th and 8th level, and it is known that he became a disciple of the Great Rakshasa due to his physical strength and body condition. It was assumed that he is a young master from a wealthy merchant group and offers a lot of money to his teacher. After hearing this information, Zaha arrives at the room where the guest is. The Golden Boar is already serving himself. When he notices the presence of the local master, he looks at the protagonist, realizing that he is not the former master. Immediately, he asks Zaha to serve him some water, and Zaha just stares at him with a look of disdain. Zaha remains standing in front of the Golden Boar. Irritated, he asks why his water hasn't been served yet. Without delay, the protagonist picks up the water pitcher from the table, thinking that if the boar behaves this way and shows himself in this manner, he must not fear the Black Rabbit, whom he's pretending to be right now. The boar says he's never seen the protagonist before and asks where the Union Master is. Zaha simply responds that he is in the heavens. Right after serving the water, he turns and leaves the room. The boar thinks the protagonist is an arrogant fool and that if this were not the Black Rabbit Union, he would act differently. Upon leaving, the administrator tells the Union Master that he has already prepared some clothes for him to wear at the meeting. Still in the other room, the fat man eats. He notices someone approaching and recognizes by the mask that it is the master of the Black Rabbit Union. The boar greets him, thinking it's his brother. In response, the protagonist insults him, asking what he wants. Annoyed, the boar asks if he heard correctly, but the protagonist thought it was best to speak to him like that. Zaha asks what business the boar has. He replies that his merchants obtain an elixir, and since the battle with Brother Rooster is approaching, he wants to offer it for a good price. The protagonist asks what kind of elixir it is. The boar replies that it's made from an herb called white herb, around 300 to 400 years old. Zaha asks what price the boar wants. He responds that Brother Rabbit is a reliable buyer, so he's offering it for 50 bars of gold and adds 10 boxes of common white flame herbs. The protagonist tells him to just bring everything. Upon hearing this, the boar says he made a great decision, although he apologizes for saying so as he planned to make the same offer to Brother Rooster if he couldn't sell it. Zaha thinks that the boar switches sides depending on convenience, reminding him that relationships there are truly poor. He also thinks that the more useful an elixir is, the more expensive it becomes. That's why he agreed to the requested amount. From now on, he will remove Iliang's assets in the Union from his mind, resolving that he won't spend more money, even if he has it. His mind is at ease with this. Later, the boar returns with the goods. The protagonist checks the roots he brought. Upon opening the boxes, the boar claims that it's difficult to find elixirs like these and equally hard to store them, so the protagonist should use them as soon as possible. Then Zaha takes one of the herbs and consumes it in front of the seller. The boar asks what he thinks of it. Zaha states that he feels good. The boar realizes that he must have consumed herbs before. Zaha thinks that he had many herbs in his previous life, but the problem is the herb that's over 100 years old. There's no way he will let him eat it like he did with the common ones. Therefore, he asks his administrator, Bayuk, to examine it. Bayuk agrees to do the task. The boar asks if he knows what he's doing. Zaha asks if he is underestimating his servant's knowledge, but the boar says that's not the case. Zaha trusts his administrator and says that he's an elder who dedicated more than 30 years of his life to Jianghu, in addition to being a legendary elixir appraiser and an expert in the field. Known as the elixir wizard, the sage master in the field, and a genius. So many praises make Bayuk feel embarrassed. Zaha states that Bayuk can find elixirs 100 miles in the sky, and even the small ones he finds over 100 miles away. It also says that his administrator joined Jianghu solely for the purpose of evaluating elixirs, claiming that this is the reputation Administrator Bayuk carries. Bayuk says he is deeply honored by his master's words. After hearing all this, the boar says such abilities are incredible. Putting on gloves, Bayuk prepares to begin. Upon opening the box with the herbs, he first smells them. The aroma enters his nostrils. After that, he thoroughly inspects all the boxes and says that both have the same scent, but if you look closely, a part of the root was clumsily torn. It seems that someone has tasted it before. Hearing this makes the boar nervous. He says that the administrator is talking nonsense and they should just confirm if they are genuine or not, as he's being generous by offering all three at a good price. Bayuk apologizes for his evaluation. Then he tells his master that the herbs are genuine and that it wouldn't be easy to get something of this quality even if someone were sent to the country of Namling. Above all, due to its difficult transportation, if there were about 5 or 6 routes, the Celestial General Golden Boar could have asked for at least 100 gold bars. The boar says he thought the administrator knew nothing, but now sees that he has deep knowledge. Zaha simply tells him to count the money and take it. Soon, the boar picks up the box with the gold bars and confirms that everything is in order. He then orders one of his servants to take the box to the carriage. After paying, Zaha tastes one of the herbs. This surprises the boar, as he says that he shouldn't eat it now, no matter how rushed he is, and should go to a calm place and worship himself or something similar. However, Zaha knows that because of the Celestial Jade, he no longer needs to cultivate after eating, as the jade absorbs the elixir's energy, allowing him to use it later, whenever he wants. He is probably the only one in Jianghu who accumulates internal ki like this. The boar advises the administrator to increase security, as his master will need to cultivate for the rest of the day. Bayuk accepts the advice. With that, the boar bids them farewell and walks away from the place. Bayuk asks if his master really won't cultivate now. The protagonist says it's fine and asks where the other executives are. They are waiting at various points, he replies, along the Golden Boar's route. Thus, Zaha concludes that he will be able to recover the money. His administrator asks if it's not a problem to do something without a plan, but his master replies that he's not one for making plans. What matters most to him is having the courage to snatch the money at all costs, along with the spirit, aggressiveness, and an assertive stance. These words inspire the administrator. He tells his master that he will keep that in mind. Zaha thinks to himself that Brother Boar should wait, as he is going to meet him. Bayuk asks why his master is trying to attack the Golden Boar. He responds that there are several reasons. First, he took his money. Then he was arrogant and asked him to fetch water when he was without his mask. Besides not having paid for the food, the administrator says he ate only high-quality dishes. Zaha says the boar is also rude to his sect brother other, and in any case, there are plenty of reasons to attack him. Thus, the administrator understands, realizing what his master really thinks. Outside, horses run, pulling the golden boar's carriage. Inside, his servant thanks his master and says everything is going according to plan. He mentions that they have already sold 3 of the roots to the Black Rabbit and can sell 4 more to White Gal. The boar says that if he does that, he will be able to raise the stakes and take everything for himself, and the rabbit will even know why he lost to his opponent. But the carriage suddenly stops, interrupting their conversation. Due to its high speed, the cart skids on the ground, causing the boar to hit his head and get hurt. He asks what's going on. The man driving responds that a carriage that stopped to change its wheels is blocking the road. A servant steps out to check the situation, and the boar says they should have stopped the carriage at the roadside if they wanted to change the wheels. Some men from the other carriage argue with the boar's driver, saying that they didn't block the road on purpose. However, the boar's servant slaps the man, making him fall to the ground. He asks how they dare block his master's path, but soon after, the protagonist appears, and he strikes the attacker with a flying kick, throwing him against some trees. While looking at the fallen aggressor, Zaha asks how he dares to lay hands on one of his coachmen. His servants, disguised as coachmen, were beaten badly, but the master calms them down. The boar sees the protagonist from a distance and says that he's also a servant, and asks what the reason for all this is. However, Zaha replies that a servant does whatever he wants, so the boar shouldn't worry about him. Furious, the boar asks what he is talking about, saying he won't let it slide just because he's his brother's servant. But Zaha shows no fear, making the boar wonder what's wrong with him. The boar gets out of his carriage and approaches Zaha. He says that now he sees that he did this on purpose, warning him that he is a disciple of the Great Rakshasa and also affiliated with the Golden Mountain Merchant Group. He also says that if they were paid by someone to do this, his group will find out. And if they are all subordinates of Brother Rabbit, the entire union will feel the wrath of his master. Lastly, he points at Zaha and says that he doesn't look like a servant, but anyway, it's easy to find out who he is with money. However, Zaha responds that he doesn't care what the boar wants to do. This makes him even angrier. So the boar decides to attack, and using his abilities, he charges at the protagonist, who also uses his abilities to defend himself. The two end up clashing, making the boar realize that his opponent is strong as well. Zaha, in turn, concentrates his strength to contain the enemy's power. The boar calls the protagonist a fool for facing him because he is the one who consumed various elixirs using his group's fortune, turning this into an internal key battle. If it's a key battle, even if it's against any disciple of Rakshasa, he's sure that he won't lose. However, the boar notices something strange. The protagonist is not only resisting, but is also using the Celestial Jade ability, siphoning the opponent's energy, absorbing everything into his body. The boar notices this and doesn't understand how the adversary is doing it. He tries to pull away, but it's already too late. With his energized hand, the protagonist grabbed him. The force is so strong that the boar's mask splits in half. He realizes that he's in a situation he can't escape from. Zaha concludes that the jade absorbs the opponent's internal ki more ruthlessly than he imagined. The boar tries to resist, but at this point he can't. Zaha thinks that if he stops this abruptly, he might receive internal injuries from the boar's palm strike. But if he doesn't stop at the right moment, the boar might die. This won't hinder him as long as he defeats all 12 celestial generals, something he would do anyway. However, he doesn't want the vengeful spirit or the soul of the enemy to remain trapped in the Celestial Jade. If that happens, he will be no different from the leader of the demon cult. So Zaha, determined, focuses, using his abilities to control the jade. After channeling his energy into his hands, he interrupts the Kai absorption, while simultaneously throwing the opponent far away. After stopping the process, Zaha concentrates the energy in his hands, which burns like a blazing fire, taking on an almost demonic form. But without difficulty, he controls the situation, leaving the boar extremely surprised. After that, Zaha concludes that his intentions were only to rob money, but he ended up getting something better, the opponent's internal Kai. Still lying on the ground, the boar asks what the protagonist did to him. Zaha thinks about it for a moment and responds that he saved him out of the kindness of his heart. This surprises the fat man as he sees the way the protagonist views things. Zaha is certain that there is no one more chivalrous than him in the world. After that, he tells his men to check the carriage since he started this. He has to finish it and take everything. The boar warns him and says that his carriage contains items destined for the White Rooster, asking if he thinks there won't be consequences for this, but Zaha agrees. He's not afraid of that and states that his men have taken everything. They find the box that contains the 100-year-old herb. Soon the master orders his men to bring it to him, even as the boar tells him not to take it. One of the men places the box in front of him, and Zaha opens it carefully. Inside, there are the mentioned herbs. Zaha says that the boar's business methods are unpleasant as he sold 3 roots to the Black Rabbit and kept 4 for the White Rooster. Caught red-handed, the boar doesn't respond at all. The protagonist says that he bets on martial arts fights and manipulates the results, using this chance to take down the Black Rabbit. The boar asks if he has any proof, but Zaha says he doesn't need one. And insulting the boar, he slaps him for his arrogance. He says that if the Black Rabbit finds out, they will gather all their subordinates and attack the boar's merchant group. However, the boar claims that his master wouldn't let this happen. But Zaha corrects him, saying that Rakshasa would let it happen and asks if the boar wants to know why. One of his men raises his hand to answer the question, and the master permits him. The man says that Rakshasa would let it pass if they gave him about half of the merchant group's fortune. Zaha says that's the correct answer. Thus, the boar cannot argue. The protagonist asks if he should report this to the union or directly to Rakshasa himself. His men respond that it doesn't matter, suggesting they could inform both. But Zaha says that would be boring as he's doing this to enjoy life, so doing that wouldn't be pleasant. His men understand what he means. He then asks the boar what his choice is. Confused, he doesn't respond immediately. The protagonist urges him, saying he doesn't have all day, demanding an answer right away. The boar asks what he wants because if he held a grudge against him, he would already be dead, and offers money in exchange for his life. But their conversation is interrupted. The red monkey woman announces her return. The boar asks what she's doing there. She sees him and asks if he also got caught. The woman presents a mask to the protagonist, saying she failed her surprise attack, but fought against the general and the ranks have shifted, as now he's in the celestial rank. Zaha takes the mask and says she did a good job. She asks if the protagonist will now have mercy on his sister and give her the antidote for the poison. Seeing all of this, the golden boar wonders how the two can be siblings. The woman says she can't fight properly because she has to go to the bathroom all the time as her diarrhea never stops. The boar wonders why she's suddenly talking about this. Zaha states that he will fulfill his promise. The fat man asks who the two of them are. Hearing this surprises both of them. The woman steps forward and slaps him across the face. One slap wasn't enough, and she continues until he falls to the ground. She asks how the fat man dares to show such disrespect to her brother. The boar still doesn't understand that they're siblings. Zaha, in turn, thanks her for her actions. He tells his servants to load all the boxes back onto the boar's carriage and clean up the mess. After that, they should take the unconscious guy and release him later. The protagonist tells the boar to call his coachman, as they have a place to go. He hesitates to carry out such a task, and Zaha merely looks at his sister. The woman says that the pig shouldn't question her brother. Afraid, the boar doesn't react. Immediately, the woman slaps him again. Outraged, the fat man asks why. Zaha says that siblings shouldn't fight so much. The woman agrees and says she'll keep that in mind. Then Zaha puts on the mask that his sister brought. Now he intends to use the dog mask for the next mission. Seeing this, the fat man doesn't quite understand, but the woman simply greets him as brother dog. The protagonist likes the fact that she's quick-witted. Seeing that the boar didn't do the same, the woman stared at him. Scared, the boar repeats the greeting. With his new persona, Zaha tells them to be at ease. Both respond, yes sir. Even though confused, the boar decides to follow suit to avoid getting hit again by the woman. The three of them board the boar's carriage. He still has doubts about the protagonist, and wonders how his abilities can be so powerful. But not only that, he also questions why the red monkey, who until now was loyal to Rakshasa, is acting like this. The protagonist interrupts the boar's thoughts, calling his attention, saying that he's thinking too loudly, and just because he's smart doesn't mean he can understand everything in the world. The boar says he understands and will stop thinking and empty his mind. The woman didn't even have to hit him this time. Shortly afterward, they arrive at Moyan Clinic. Some men take the boar inside. A nurse asks what happened and orders them to take the boar inside. His aides comply with the order. The protagonist stares at the man for a brief moment. His current appearance is handsome and healthy, but in his memories from his past life, the protagonist identifies him as the poison demon Moingbek, the man who once saved him from Kai deviation. Moingbek lost his entire family due to a conflict with the great Rakshasa. How terrifying must it be for someone who only saved lives to become so resentful? The man who proved to be the poison demon grew stronger thanks to his knowledge of the body and medicine, and began researching poisons when that wasn't enough. After a constant cycle of self-poisoning and treatment, the doctor, who had become a completely different person, killed the great Rakshasa. He didn't even let his disciples escape. Even the celestial generals who abandoned their identities to live peacefully were found by him. Zaha met him after he killed Rakshasa, and he not only hated the members of Jangu, but he also despised all humans in general, to the point where the protagonist made a vow to never save a person again. He treated countless patients, but none of them helped him while he was going mad due to their fear of the great Rakshasa. Rakshasa and his disciples had once been patients of the doctor. Because of this, Moingbek began to resent humans and sank deeper and deeper into Jangu. The reason why Zaha is grateful to the doctor is because he broke his vow to never save another person to help him with the Kai deviation. The man who was slowly going insane may have sympathized with the protagonist as he had gone mad long before. Zaha supposes that one could say it's a form of sympathy that only the insane share, and even the doctor once had a time when he was a normal person. Back in the present, Zaha calls for the monkey sister and tells her to get treated along with brother Boar. The one agrees and goes to seek help. Moingbek says he has never seen the protagonist before and asks if he's feeling well. Zaha holds his mask, while Moingbek stares at him, and then he removes it from his face. Both stare at each other for a brief moment. Moingbek doesn't quite understand what's happening. Zaha thinks it's impossible for the doctor to recognize him, as in this life they have never really met. Then he introduces himself as Yi Zaha from the Uliang Prefecture, and says that he is the leader of a small group called the Ignoble Clan. Moingbek asks if he's not one of the 12 celestial generals. The protagonist simply responds that his clan is currently at war with the great Rakshasa. The original owner of this mask was murdered by the red monkey. Moingbek asks where the clan leader feels unwell. Zaha responds that he's just there to pay and he doesn't feel unwell, adding that he was curious as he heard of the doctor's extraordinary medical skills. The doctor realizes he hasn't formally introduced himself yet and says his name is Moingbek. Zaha greets him back and asks Moingbek to follow him for a moment, showing him the elixir herbs. Moingbek asks what they're doing there. Zaha asks him to evaluate them. The doctor says that, considering the thickness of the roots and the number of branches, it's at least a 100-year-old white flame herb. Zaha asks if it's over 300 years old, but the doctor says that's a bit an exaggeration. They are quite expensive, so anything they can find is transported to the Central Plains, as they are rare these days. The protagonist says he knew the boar had lied about the age of the herbs. Then he tells the doctor that he consumed 3 of the herbs, and the doctor congratulates him. Moingbek says that, as he must know, because the herb contains a great amount of energy, he should be cautious about the furious disease caused by overconsumption. Zaha says he always feels feels tired, so it's all right in that regard. The doctor understands and warns that if he has a tendency to feel tired, he should take special care. He says that he's venting his anger properly, so the doctor asks how exactly he's doing that. Moingbak assures him that he has a medical obligation to keep the clinical details of his patients confidential, so Zaha can be honest. Then the protagonist says that his house recently burned down. It also served as an inn, and he was boiling with rage over the loss. Moingbak agrees that this is indeed something infuriating. Zaha agrees and says that he then killed the guy who set the house on fire. After doing that, he felt an inner peace. Frightened by such information, Moingbak says he understands. The protagonist continues, saying that later he discovered that those responsible were trying to take over a sect from the Dark Faction with the permission of the Black Rabbit Union. Then the Union thugs came to him and kept talking nonsense about whether he wanted to live or die. Moingbak asks what he did next. Zaha responds that he killed him too. And when he did that, he felt a great sense of peace again. Moingbak, even though scared, agrees with him. The protagonist says that after doing that, they sent an assassin after him. Moingbak asks if the Union did that. He replies yes, but he spared the assassin's life because the man had courage. After eating ribs together, they took down the former master of the Black Rabbit Union. Being honest, Zaha says he was very emotional. Moingbak says he understands how he feels. He says that he even considered letting the former master of the Union live. The ungrateful man said things that did not please him. Zaha states that his words don't matter anymore since he made him ascend for exhausting his patience. Moingbak hesitates, wondering if ascend means dying. But the protagonist affirms that after doing that, he felt that same peace again. Not knowing what the most appropriate response would be, Moingbak says that he did well to release his pent-up anger. Zaha asks if he's serious. Moingbak confirms, saying he realized it due to the expression on the protagonist's face. The protagonist recalls that when he first met Moingbak, his expression was completely empty after having achieved his revenge. His once-burning desire for vengeance diminished after killing everyone. What should he live for after that? Neither those he loved nor those he hated were in this world anymore. Zaha concludes that the best thing is to prevent this future misfortune from happening to the one who helped him. Even though he sometimes wants to become the crazy demon again, there is no need for Moingbak to become the poison demon once more. After finishing his tea, Zaha says that only he going mad is enough. On the other side of the room, Zaha hears his sister expressing deep gratitude. He thinks that being treated was enough for her to show her gratitude, as she must be relieved not to have to go through it all over again. Moingbak leaves the room and says that none of them suffered any serious damage, so the protagonist doesn't need to worry. Zaha truly doesn't seem worried. The doctor says that while the injuries are minor, their mental state is unstable, especially the red monkey, who seems to have not slept in days in addition to having severe diarrhea recently. And she keeps asking what the protagonist is doing all the time. The doctor says the woman even knelt down, begging to be helped. Smiling, the doctor seems pleased to have been able to help both, but Zaha knows what really happened. He reveals that he gave her a laxative and made her think it was a deadly poison. He adds that he gave her a medicine that causes diarrhea, not one that stops it. Zaha says he ordered the woman to kill one of the three most tyrannical celestial generals: Green Dog, Yellow Horse, or White Rat. He claims he had no choice but to kill the woman if she resisted him. Moreover, he states that the laxative he gave her is the only thing keeping her alive. Moingbak doesn't understand this last statement. The protagonist says he calls it the laxative theory. The doctor is shocked by his words. He says he didn't know that a laxative could save lives. Zaha says that since she completed the task, the doctor should take good care of her health. Moingbak confirms that he will do so. Then the protagonist asks them to stop talking about this and change the subject. Moingbak agrees and mentions that the golden boar seems to have suffered some psychological shock in addition to his face being swollen. The protagonist says the boar lost a lot of internal energy and money while facing him. Moingbak wants to ask something else but doesn't know if he can. However, Zaha tells him to ask whatever he wants. So the doctor asks why Zaha brought his disciples to be treated there, considering that he's an enemy of the great Rakshasa. Zaha says that he touched on the main topic. He thinks for a moment and says that there is someone in Jianghu as he walks. Thinks about what would happen if he killed everyone he encounters. People who are worth sparing, strangers, and practically everyone else. Moingbak becomes even more curious. Zaha says that such a person becomes part of the demonic faction. This makes Moingbak a bit frightened. Zaha continues his explanation, gesturing with his hand. He says that even if this person kills other cruel people who burn down his home, he can spare those he deems useful to his cause. A foul-mouthed woman, an assassin paying for his meal, and a man who can't understand the world because he was captured young. Moingbak asks if that's the way of the Dark Faction. Zaha replies that it's not, but that's his attitude towards their way. Moingbak questions if these are truly the protagonist's actions. He confirms, saying that he treats people with the hope that one day some of them will be reformed. Even if he is reserved, he will still deal with it. The doctor asks if, instead, the protagonist is part of the White Faction, a fighter spoken of by ordinary people. Zaha responds that he's not, and it would be difficult to join now because he lacks virtues. Moingbak doesn't believe that everyone there is virtuous. The protagonist says that, among them, the sect founders and the first leaders have a lot of virtue in addition to being very skilled. He also says that those who lack virtue are there because they are disciples. It's the power of heredity, but he doesn't fit the profile of the members there. Since it's not in his blood, he needs time and effort to become part of the White Faction. Moingbak thinks a bit about what he just heard. He concludes that the protagonist seemed normal, but hopes he understands the difference between the demonic, dark, and white factions. The doctor is startled by something and asks the protagonist what that is on the table. Zaha responds that it's the payment for the treatment. The amount shocks Moingbak, but the protagonist thinks that even if it's not the case anymore, giving this much to his savior is not a waste. Moinbaek states that it's a lot of money, but Zaha insists that the value is fair and asks him to please prepare a room while he waits for the treatment to finish. The doctor feels awkward about accepting the entire amount, even as the protagonist insists that he take it, politely. Moinbaek refuses. Zaha gets slightly annoyed at the doctor's kindness and says that he was stubborn even before he went mad. The protagonist tells him to at least take the herbs, as a doctor needs to be healthy to save lives. Moinbaek tells the protagonist that to fully absorb the herb's energy, he would need to cultivate for more than 10 days. And since he sees patients all the time, he can't accept it. Now the protagonist has lost the argument. Our video ends here. To ensure you don't miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time.